so people afterwards can see this, but there you go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brittany, and I am a brand designer here on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Colette.creative. Yes, because I recently changed it. Originally, I was doing engagement. I was becoming an engagement VA, and then I did some market research, and I'm like, I don't want to do engagement. I really do love doing brand design, and just creating. Sometimes all the jumble is up in here, and it's like, how do we get it out visually? So I like helping people out on that end. So that's a little bit of me, and I live in New York, Staten Island, New York. That's where I'm at.
That is awesome. It's so nice to finally talk to you, by the way. I know we've been talking in Instagram. I've been talking to a lot of you guys on Instagram. Anyway, thank you so much for starting us off. Who would like to go next? Who wants to introduce themselves? And by the way, if you want to share your handles, you can do that in the chat. It's usually easier than saying it.
Hi, I'll go next. Sorry, my camera just doesn't seem to be working today. I can't get it on.
Oh no.
Hi, I'm Gabby. I'm a virtual assistant for coaches, and I like to work with travellers as well. And my Instagram handle is Gabrielle Kerris. I'm from the UK, and I guess a fun fact about me is that I'm vegetarian. Yeah. I've been vegetarian for just over half a year.
All right, awesome. You enjoying that? I went vegetarian for about half a year too. I just, when I came home,
I do enjoy it, but I'm thinking I wanted to do it. I set a goal to do it for a year, so that's what I'm going to do. But I think I'm going to go pescatarian, probably back in after the year.
Fair enough. Awesome. Good on you for taking care of your health and the environment. Awesome. Who else would like to introduce themselves? Again, if you don't feel comfortable doing it on camera, you're welcome to do that in the chat. I'm giving you options. But I would love if you could just introduce yourself. Ariel, thank you for joining. And Annalie, I saw you join too. Hi.
Hello.
Oh, who said I'll go? Oh, Leah. There we go.
Hi guys, I'm Leah Party. I'm a spiritual mentor for life and business, and a podcast host. I host the Candid Confidence podcast.
It's really great.
Thank you. My big mission is really helping women believe in themselves so they can go after their dreams, and it's really important to me that women and men start to implement mindfulness and learn to detach from their thoughts, detach from their ego, connect with their soul on a deeper level, and through that, I feel it's a great way to connect with your true confidence. So that's kind of my mission. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it's hard to think of a fun fact. I guess I ski.
Fun.
And anything outside, I'm like obsessed with the outdoors.
Awesome. All right. We'd like to go next.
I can go.
Calling on people. There we go.
I'll go.
All right, let's go. Let's hear from you.
I'm Michaela. Sorry if it's echoey in here.
You're fine.
But I'm like in this sunroom and it's like echoing on my end. So I am a social media manager, and I manage people's accounts, and then I also Instagram and Facebook usually, and then I also create puzzle feeds for Instagram. And so my handle is socially Mick, MYK. I'll put it in the chat. But I'd love to see all of you, and I'll follow all of you back. And also a fun fact is I am babysitting puppies right now. They are over here, and if they wake up, I'll bring them into the meeting, but they're like over here.
Oh my goodness.
So
that's the best. If everyone has dogs, I don't mind if they interrupt. That's usually the best kind of interruption. Awesome. Incredible. Thank you so much. It's nice to finally actually talk to you too, because I know we've been talking a lot. Thank you all this is the first time people have like gotten on it with these introductions. Actually, I feel like I'm pulling teeth. So this is a good group here. Who would like to introduce themselves next?
All right, I'll go next.
Awesome.
My name is Aurora. For the moment, I live in New York. I registered to 90-day VA course exactly 1 month ago. Before that, I used to be I used to work with SEO with an agency back home for Google Italy, and I used to help businesses to improve their position in the Google research. So when I found out about this course, I really loved the modules, especially the SEO. I feel like for now that's my niche, and I really really love it. A fun fact about me is that I really love traveling. Maybe that's something common for you girls too.
Who all loves
Um,
traveling? Raise your hand.
All
Who
hands.
misses it?
Another fun fact is I love cactuses a lot. I'm a mama cactus, and I really enjoy like painting sometimes when I feel like it, or when I go like through a lot of stress and everything. I found
Aw.
that like a good way to release the stress. And I really love singing. Like if you come into my house or doing chores or something else, I just love
Singing.
singing. I really bother my little niece to a point she's like, stop.
I really love that you're mentioning all these things that like make you happy and like are able to help calm you down and stuff like, because that's really important, because I know we're going to be talking about mindset today, but you're
Definitely.
basically talking through all the things that you do to kind of take care of yourself and make you happy.
Definitely,
And
'cause
that's awesome.
yeah, when you are like in a certain age, I mean like younger, 28 right now. And when I used to be like in my 20s, nobody cared about, mental health or something, like to do something to comfort yourself, or to really work with your emotions and to calm yourself down, or really try to understand your emotions. But the more that you grow up and the more like you socialize with the right people and the right connections, like you become a little bit more aware. So yeah. All right, girls. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Does anyone else want to introduce themselves?
I can do it.
Oh.
Hi. Oh.
No.
Trying to say who's talking.
Go if you'd like to.
All right, let's go. Let's go, Nicola, and then we'll go Nikki.
All right.
Okay, I'll be really fast, I promise. So my name is Nicola. I'm from Slovakia, but currently I'm in South Africa. I started my journey as a VA in August last year, and I'm niching down just now. I'm focusing on online course creators, preferably who are also coaches, and I do like graphic design, podcast, web management, and social media. And fun fact about me, I'm vegetarian too, so Gabby, hi. And what else? Oh yeah, I'm a nerd. Like if you have any good book recommendations, please shoot it my way. I'm gonna be happy to connect.
Good. Let's create a book club right here and now. We're gonna turn this into a book club. Psych. Nikki, your turn.
Hello, my name is Nikki. Thank you, Dominique, for the invite to today's event. I am a life coach for mainly women. I focus a lot on self-love and courage and doing all the badass things that women can do. So a fun fact about me, I started my entrepreneur journey 2019, like January 2019. Since then, I've done quite a lot, to be honest, all over the place. I started my own apparel line, became a personal trainer. I did real estate. I did affiliate marketing. I did Facebook advertising. And in 2020, I did like about 6 courses on personal development and other marketing stuff. But it's really like the self-love has taught me, the authenticity part of being who you are is embracing your journey, no matter what it looks like. And I had so much trouble with that. So now this is what really calls out to me. And my Instagram handle is nikki.who, and I'll put that in the link. I forgot what else we were supposed to share.
Oh, you got it. I think you got it. I just said introduce yourself. There really wasn't a pattern aside from the fun fact, but you really have done a lot.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know half of that.
5 lifetimes.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And I'm so glad you found something that you are passionate about and something that really calls to you. I also want to let everyone know, I know we're doing this exercise here, introducing ourselves. Obviously, I love it when we all can network at these things. You know, just me talking is no fun for most people. But beyond the fact that I would love for you all to connect with each other, because you know we're here to talk about imposter syndrome in the end. And one of the best ways to handle your imposter syndrome is to connect with other people who are also entrepreneurs, who are also in the same space as you, and realize that they're not perfect either. All of us struggle with it. So the more you can connect with them, the more you realize like you're not the only one that's struggling with this. Even if you know it, technically it's easier when you can actually see it. So I highly recommend connecting with each other, especially with anyone that you have something in common with, Gabby, Nicola, or anything else in common with. Please reach out to each other, please connect, make sure you share your handles, because that's really what is going to help you the most. I can give you all sorts of information. What's going to help you the most is actually talking to each other. So, you good? Anyone else who hasn't introduced themselves want to do so? Analia?
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know if anyone else wanted to go, but yeah, my name's Analia. Sorry, I'm like making lunch right now because I'm like running way behind, but I just rebranded to being a copywriter VA because I wanted to break into being a copywriter a little bit, but I don't really have all those skills yet to like totally branch off and be my own. And I tried niching down originally with being a VA with helping like boutiques and like small creative owners, and that was kind of a mess. So but I figured out, I was like, I really like the writing element, so I wanted to kind of branch off with that. So I guess that's kind of my fun fact as well.
I mean, I thought it was great when I saw you kind of decide to dive into that because it's something like, which is important.
yeah, because I had a copywriter reach out to me, and she was like, oh, well, like how good are your writing skills? And like because she's like, I really need help with doing like copywriting for the brands that I manage. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so it's like a whole brain blast. It's awesome.
This is perfect. Awesome. And just so you all, yeah, guess I see Gabby just posted in the chat too, but Gabby and Kay are also VAs of varying types. So if you're a VA and you want to connect with other VAs, they are also there. I know that they're not able to talk right now, but just so you guys know who all is here. Nicola, do you know what Maya does? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, yes. So actually, Maya and Aurora, we are each other's accountability partners from 90 Day VA. And Maya, I know she's doing, oh my God, Maya, I hope you're not going to be mad, but she's doing a little bit blogging, a little bit admin. So VA, but she's trying to transition to something more specific.
Awesome. So now we all know each other. Know what each other does. Kay just introduced herself in the chat, so go say hi to her. She's from Zimbabwe. We got people from all over right now. This is actually pretty incredible. I'm so happy to have you all here. Oh, Crystal came and joined. For all you guys, I'm sure Crystal will introduce herself. But Crystal and I actually have a program together. She's one of my biz besties, known her the longest out of pretty much anyone. Hi, Crystal.
Hello, I'm having technical difficulties.
You're fine.
But,
You're fine.
What's up, everyone? What did I miss?
We were just introducing each other, so you came in a perfect time. It's all good.
Cool, awesome.
All right. So we're 15 minutes in, which is actually perfect. We're right on time, y'all. Let's get talking about imposter syndrome. So first things first, I want all of y'all who have your cameras on, I want you to raise your hands if you know you've struggled with imposter syndrome. If you're here, I imagine that is a yes. Feel free to put in the chat if you aren't on camera. Good. Okay. We all get it. I'm super interested to hear what your experience with imposter syndrome has been like, your personal experience. Like if I have to talk for myself, usually it's me like feeling like I get a little bit excessive and I'll like push it away because I'm like afraid that if I get it, I'm going to let them down. That's usually my version of imposter syndrome. I'm curious to see if anyone wants to share what their experience has been like. Does anyone feel comfortable enough to share a little bit?
Yeah, I'll share.
All right.
So I would say when I first started in online business as a life coach, I definitely felt the like, okay, but if they hire me, like, am I going to be good at this? You know, like I had a few practice clients, but then first paying clients, definitely a lot of that. And then when I shifted to business coaching, same thing, right? It's like, it's new again. It's like, I'm going to teach the things that worked for me, but will they work for someone else? So I think that's like a super, super common one. But also when I was starting out, like, I thought I was too young. I didn't think anyone would hire, I was 26 at the time. I didn't think anyone would hire a life coach that age, right? Like there's been so many things. I'm trying to think what it would be right now. I mean, there's just so many. Like just recently, like I stopped wearing makeup and it was a big struggle of like, but people expect me to be this way that I've always been, right? And like dress this way and be and like make myself look really pretty and like do all these things. And it's just for me, like I think the biggest process of growing confidence it is like shedding each of those layers of like, but I can't do it because of this reason, and I can't do it because of this reason. And once you shed them all, then you just get to be free.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I want you all to know too that Leah is like, she does her job full time. Like she's what I would call a successful coach. And she's still talking about how she's struggling with this. So I just want you all to understand that. I really want you all to understand that. So thank you so much for sharing, Leah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it doesn't ever like fully go away because each time it's something new. Like, you know, I just started a new Facebook group. So it's like, well, like, are people going to join that group? And what if they don't, right? It's always like the next thing. But as you start to kind of conquer it, then each time it's something new, it's like less and less. You can kind of hear it, but you're like, I know that isn't the ultimate truth. So yeah.
Because I've gone through it now. I've done it before and I did well at it. So it's like, you kind of start getting proof that, okay, you know what, you're wrong. I also want to, and we're going to talk about strategies a little bit later. Like we can share that. I have a ton of them. But one of my favorite ones I want to let everyone know, and some of you all have already heard this, is to give your imposter syndrome a name. Leah actually told me something like giving your ego a name was a thing. I know we talked about it at one point. But also really give anything a name, but give your imposter syndrome a name. And the reason we do this and the reason why it's fun is because it detaches it from yourself. All of a sudden, it's not you saying, I suck. It's someone else saying you suck. And then you can be like, go, leave, bye. I have several names for all of them. I use a ton of them. And it's just, usually it's names of people that I don't really like. So it makes it more fun to me. But yeah, that's kind of just a fun way to start getting your mindset around the fact of detaching it from yourself a little bit. Samantha, I saw that you joined us, by the way. Hi, welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Yeah, does anyone else want to share their experience? Does anyone else relate to what Leah was saying?
It's Brittany. I think I might chime in here because it just happened. It just happened this morning when I was making eggs. It was supposed to be an omelet. And then it didn't come together. And I was just like, it looks terrible. I was trying to make my boyfriend a nice Valentine's Day breakfast. He's like, it's fine. I'm going to eat it anyway. It's probably delicious. Like, you're being too hard on yourself. Oh, no. And I do this a lot, though. And I think with branding, it's like, even though I'm like still learning a lot, I'll be very quick to be like, oh, it doesn't look as good as this person. But everyone's going to have it differently. And the only person who's telling yourself that is you at the end of the day. So it's a matter, like you said, I like the idea of like naming your imposter syndrome and disassociating it from that, because they're just thoughts. They're not facts.
Yes. Oh, we're going to get in. Yeah. I love that you said that because we're going to get into that too. I think that's so much fun. But that's so true, by the way. Like I am 100% the person that sometimes if there's something that I'm not great at, like cooking is one of those things, I'll apologize every time I get in the kitchen. And then like, I'll accidentally slightly overcook the chicken. And my dad's like, you're fine. You're fine. Cause he's the cook. So I always feel bad serving it to him. And he was like, it's fine. But you know, you sit there and you think it's like, oh my God, I suck so bad at this. Never going to do it again.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's so funny because God bless him. He just like eats anything. He's like, it's fine. I'm like, what if you get sick? What if I didn't cook the chicken well? He's like, that's all right. I'll eat it.
Oh, that's really sweet that you have that person. It's always fun. Does anyone else relate to that? Anyone else want to share their experience, a similar experience?
I'll share.
All right, let's go, Crystal.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, I've been basically doing like spiritual coaching for almost a year now, like 9 months.
And, along the way, I've unpacked a lot about like how capitalism kind of contributes to our sense of imposter syndrome. And I've kind of learned that I think that every time it rears its ugly head, it's because we feel like we have something to prove, right? Like, I feel like it's like in your head, you envision this idea of what you like should be because you really want to be that, but then you also like get like the gap between like who you are now and who you think you should be in order to deserve whatever it is you want. That like disconnect, I think, is where the imposter syndrome comes in. And I think like getting clear on like what you want has been like the only antidote, but I think like redefining and unpacking like what you're using to figure out what you want, I think, is something you're really good at, Dami. And like it takes a lot of journaling, I think, because I don't know, I think like you are an imposter if you're not doing what's really true to you. And if you're trying to do something to prove that you deserve to be like happy or like successful or like helpful, all these things, then I think it's like really easy to get caught in like the comparison game, because imposter syndrome comes with like, comparing yourself to like
imposter syndrome comes with everything.
Or your future self, or even like your past self and all this stuff. So yeah, and I think that no one in school really taught us how to really be ourselves. Like I think that they kind of all were like, you have to pay a lot of prices to like deserve to be here and all this stuff. So I think that like it's actually more natural to feel like an imposter than to actually feel like your full aligned self in a lot of ways. Yeah,
that's a really good point, actually, because it is true. I mean, like part of what happens in schooling is like they teach you everyone the same thing in the same way, and we have to be this person, and if you don't fit into that mold, it's like, well, who am I?
Yeah, it's like be yourself. Unless you're not making money, then you should not be yourself. Like it's like be yourself unless you're like not popular enough to make friends, then you should not be yourself. Like I think it's like be yourself, like with a huge like line
asterisk. It's a big asterisk is what it's like they're trying to pretend that they want you to be yourself, but and some people more people have been introducing themselves in the chat, by the way, so if you guys want to check that out, feel free to do that. Thank you so much for sharing, Crystal. I love that take on things, because sometimes we forget that obviously our experiences in the past have shaped us to be who we are now, so we have to unpack what has happened to figure out why what's happening now is happening. So sometimes if you're thinking of like, why am I so stressed? Why am I so anxious? Why am I struggling with imposter syndrome? Why am I comparing myself to everyone? Well, look at what you've been doing in the past. Look at what you've been taught. So, and Crystal and I know a lot about the looking at the past thing, and we have a group program together, by the way, so we know each other really well. If you know Myers-Briggs, hit us up.
Everyone's imposter syndrome does come flavored differently based on personality type, which is a huge part of what I do. But I do think from that, there's also like a lot of foundational ways that we are all influenced collectively. Also, as all female identifying here, I think we can all really resonate with, kind of be intimidated by like, why are there so many like dude CEOs, like yada yada, like, all this stuff. So yeah, it's all like what you expose yourself to, and like the ways that I guess you self-develop, because everyone does it differently. If all your gifts are different, then like all the ways you get to, beating it are also different yet similar. And that's where Dami comes in.
Thank you. Also, I see, by the way, and I want to share this, I think this is fun. I've been talking to Samantha. She just shared in the chat. So she named her imposter syndrome Marcelina, which is named after a character in a show, but y'all should come up with your own names. And if you have a name for your imposter syndrome, if you're thinking of some, put them in the chat, because I would love to see them. I named my ego Devin after my ex-boyfriend. I'm saying that out loud. And I named my imposter syndrome Donald. So they're all D names, apparently. Apparently, I have a vendetta. Negative Karen. I love that. If anyone else has their name, feel free to put it in. Whatever you want to name it, doesn't matter. It can be anyone you don't like. I don't care. Yes, there we go. I like these names. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to start sharing slides, because I'm going to get into some kind of nitty gritty like logic stuff just for a bit, so we can start to think about this a little bit more objectively, because that's what I like to do. Let's get started. Again, if anyone's putting things in the chat, like questions that I don't see, let me know. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions along the way. So, oh goodness. Well, that wasn't what I was hoping would come up. This is fine. Technical difficulties, y'all. There we go. Hi, everyone. I am Dami. You probably already know that. I'm the authenticity coach. This is my journey, if you want. And I've actually been through way more transformations than this. I was a trained journalist. I became an admin assistant just to earn money. Then I moved to LA and I became a YouTuber and small YouTuber community leader. It's a big thing. Then I moved to LA and became a production assistant in Hollywood. I worked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine a little bit. That was actually a lot of fun. And CSI a little bit and a few smaller things. Then I was an admin assistant again because I didn't like film. I was a copywriter, yay person. Then I became many iterations of a coach. Leah saw me through some of that transformation. But essentially, what I'm now doing here is, I wanted to share that journey first of all, because I want you to understand that this change is completely normal. You're going to pivot. You're going to change your niche. You're going to change what you do as you're figuring things out. And that's completely fine, because sometimes we need to try things to figure out if they're actually a good fit for us. Sometimes we can't just sit there and think about it. So I want you all to understand that it's okay to actually try something and then decide it's not right for you. Like, you can do that. It doesn't mean you failed. But yeah, just want you guys to understand just a little bit more about me and where I'm coming from. I deal a lot with the imposter syndrome, mostly because that's what my clients ask me a lot about. So that's why we're here. A little bit more about me is I've been holding these events since around October. I had a first one with Crystal, and then I started holding these monthly events starting in November. So we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about vision. We've talked about being your best self. We've talked about being a VA. Now we're on imposter syndrome. Myers-Briggs was one we did with Crystal. And I have a mastermind where I tackle a lot of these same concepts. So just so you understand where I'm coming from and what I've been doing, if you're ever interested in running an event, by the way, let me know. I've learned a lot from the last few months. Moving along. All right, let's kick imposter syndrome to the curb. I hope our images are not cutting this off. I think there's a view where you could put people to the side, just so you know. But yeah, think of it as we are now purging imposter syndrome. We're going to figure out the ways to do that. So the first thing I want people to understand is kind of what imposter syndrome actually is, because I know it's a term that's thrown around. But essentially, imposter syndrome is it's a pattern in which we doubt our skills, our talents, how we actually succeed, because we're afraid that someone's going to expose us as a fraud. So the internalized fear there is that someone's going to point us out and be like, you were wrong. You are not a coach. You are not a VA, a good coach. You are not a good VA. You are not this. And then point us out as being a fraud, even though we've identified ourselves as a coach or a VA and all of that. So that's usually the big fear there. Like beneath all of this, beneath the perfectionism, beneath the comparing, beneath all of it. Because in the end, usually we're even afraid of ourselves doing the same thing. We're afraid of ourselves exposing ourselves. And I put this down here because this is us thinking back to how we were raised and how we grew up, but it usually occurs in people who were high achievers. And I'm going to talk about the other side of this. It usually occurs in people who are high achievers who, because that was just the norm, weren't able to fully accept success. It was always on to the next thing. It was always like, okay, well, I got straight A's. That's just how it is. Like, I got lucky. It's usually how it works. Usually chalking it up to luck rather than ability again. And so by doing that, nothing you ever get, you never really think it's yours. So anytime someone praises you, anytime you get a trophy, anytime you get a testimonial, it always feels like it was due to some sort of luck. Like, oh, this person was just a really nice person who landed in my lap. Or, or like, they just don't really know brand design. So anything I gave them would have been good. I just got lucky there. Something like that is usually what comes up. So, but you're eventually afraid that someone will come along, or you will come along and like be unmasked as like, oh, you're not good at brand design. You're not good at copywriting. You're not good at coaching people. And that's usually kind of the fear that's underneath all of it. So any questions on any of this, by the way? Any comments? Feeling good? All right, I will move along. We talked about I'm going to go back real quick because there is another side. I know those usually happens in high achievers. It can also happen obviously in not high achievers, people who where it's like they almost feel like success never comes to them. So when it does, then it seems like luck. It's kind of a similar idea, double-edged sword. So why does it happen? It usually happens because, for many reasons, we might equate happiness and love and worthiness to acceptance from others, to achievement, to likability. So, you know, for example, if we're not likable, then we're not worthy. We can't be happy. You know, we can't be loved. If we don't achieve something, then we can't have any of that either. So it's usually equating these things to this. And that comes down to, especially if you're a VA, and I see this a lot, or really anyone, when they think like, once I hit 5K months or get this many clients, I'll be happy, or I'll be a good VA. When that's not how that works. That's honest. Half the time you'll hit that and you'll realize, why am I not happy? The happiness, love, and worthiness has to come first. That's my belief on that. And I will stick to my guns on that. I feel like people are putting things in the chat. I'm just checking. See what Kay says. Yeah, Kay says she can relate. Whenever my clients praise me, I go, oh, she's just really nice. I do that too. Who else can relate? Who else can relate? Put in the chat. If you can relate to like when people praise me, you're just like, oh, she's just really nice.
Can I add something, please?
Yes, please.
I was reading the last message. I don't know if it was Kay or somebody else, but you know, when she said that, oh, when the customer says good words about me and I say, oh, she's just being nice. I don't know, I kind of relate this when we were kids and how our parents used to teach us how to be humble.
Mm-hmm.
I'm relating that with that part. Like when somebody else like used to compliment us or them, oh, look how great kids you have, and they'd be like, they just nice just because you're here, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so true, because we're taught to, like, if people praise us or whatever, you're supposed to be like, oh, well, you know, like be humble about it. But as you grow up, you learn that attitude isn't really helpful, let's be honest.
Exactly.
I love that you brought that up though, because again, this is us relating things back to things that have happened in the past. I see someone else joined too. Hello, thank you. I'm going to share my screen again. We're going to go back. Yep, again, the expectation to succeed. It's putting expectations on ourselves. That's in all of this. Here's a big one, and this is another big one, especially in the high achiever category, people who grew up getting straight A's and being on honor roll and all that great stuff, you know, wonderful. It's that lack of exposure to failure, which means that whenever failure comes into play, we reject it. It's like, oh, I failed at this thing, I'm never going to do it again. You know? Because we have the imposter syndrome, like, oh my God, like I'm not, and we're going to get more into that too. But usually if you're not exposing yourself to failure in whatever piece of life, whether it's your relationships, your business, your friendships, whatever it might be, it's going to kind of cause the same cycle to happen. And then of course, there's again a million reasons why it happens, but comparison, I guess, is the big thing. We compare ourselves to the people around us and on social media. And one of the things I like to talk about is what we see most often becomes our normal. So because social media is around and people are posting their best selves on there, we see people as their best self the most often, even more so than we might see ourselves in the mirror, for example. So one of my ways, just a quick comparison and strategy, and a quick way to also feel more confident on camera, I wouldn't say quick, it's not quick, is what I call mirror work. Every performer does this in some capacity, and it's literally putting yourself in front of a mirror for some period of time every day and watching yourself talk, move, blink, whatever. Because what you're doing is getting used to your own face. Because if you don't do that and you're just seeing everyone else, you're constantly going to see your face for that split second a day or whatever it is and be like, oh my God, that's weird, because it's not normal. Everyone else has a normal face. So that is a good exercise to kind of put in practice, especially if you're afraid of getting on camera in any capacity in your business. Starting, I know it feels weird, but my clients have done it and it really does help. Even if it's just taking a video of yourself and you never post it, start with that and get used to your own face and how you move. Cool. Any questions on this? Anything anyone wants to add? There's so many things we could add to this. Let's be honest. Feeling good? All right.
I will share.
Go ahead, let's share.
I used to do this
Oop,
because
you're cutting
English
out a
is
little
not
bit,
my,
Sam.
sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Now it's working?
That's
Yeah.
better.
So I used to do this because English is not my first language. So when I see myself in the camera talking English, I was just so weird. Like how can people like understand me or anything? And when I say in Portuguese, that's fine. Like I'm not afraid of the camera, but I had to get used to the sound of my own voice and see myself in the camera speaking English so I could feel more confident, you know? Like
That's so
exactly what
true.
you said. Like I had to practice.
Like it's and that's especially for anyone else who may or may not have a different. Well, let's just say you're trying to learn a different language. Sometimes just getting like Sam was saying, like getting on camera and practicing it is sometimes the best way to do it. Even again, if you never post it, it's fine. But it's fine. Start small if you have to. It's completely fine. I'm not going to tell you to hop straight on YouTube. Like you're okay. By the way, who here it feels, I guess, uncomfortable getting on stories or just getting generally on camera? Does anyone here feel uncomfortable with it? Kind of curious. You can raise your hand or put in the chat. Does anyone want to share?
Oh, sorry, it's Brittany. I actually have a suggestion that helped me overcome getting on stories. One of the accounts I follow, I think she used to go by oh my goodness, I forgot where she went by because she just did a rebranding, but if I remember her name, I'll add it on here. She did like a 12 days of stories challenge back in December for like the 12 days of Christmas. And each day there was a different prompt on going on stories and what you should talk about. And I feel like having a small challenge, even if you make one for yourself for like 10 days or 5 days, it really does help a lot to just go on. It's like, all right, I didn't put makeup on, but it's only up for 24 hours. So if you don't like it, you don't have to save it to your highlights.
That's the best part of stories.
Yeah. And I feel like it helped me tremendously because I used to be so shy and I was like, oh, I'm going to go do it in the bedroom, close and not have John listen to me because I sound crazy talking to not really anything but a camera. But now I just do it right here when he's like right next to me and I feel more comfortable. So I feel like that helps doing a little challenge.
Well, this is us just talking about, like, when it comes to fear, and if anyone saw my recent reel, that you can't beat fear if you don't take a swing at it. The point of that being is that like everyone tries to think of ways to get over fear, but really the last puzzle piece in that, yes, you can journal, you can, be self-aware, like there's all sorts of behind the scenes work, but the last puzzle piece that has to be put in place is just doing it. It's just doing the thing that you are afraid of or facing the thing that you are afraid of, because how do you know if you've gotten over it, or how do you know what it's like if you don't actually go and do it? It's always the last puzzle piece, and the fear is always going to be there until you do that puzzle piece. So do all the pre-work, of course, but just understanding that. And that's the same for stories and getting on camera and all that. You can do all of this pre-work, you can do the mirror work, the testing out, the just recording for yourself, you can do journaling, all of that, but until you actually put it out there, if that's was the goal, that fear is always going to be there. Yeah, just comes with practice. That's kind of the standard, isn't it?
I'll add to that, Dami, because I had an intense fear of showing up on my social media, on even posting pictures on my social media. Like that was difficult for me, it really took time to get to that point. But one of the things that really helped, like you said, was looking at yourself in the mirror. Oftentimes, with the whole self-worth, I find that self-worth is linked to the past. A lot of my past has been with my parents, not feeling appreciated, not being complimented, always being criticized. You're not doing enough, you're not good enough. You look at your cousin who's earning 6 figures, going to Harvard, doing this, and it's very depreciating in that aspect when you live for somebody else. So taking that back and saying what is not true and still loving yourself anyways, and then going for it, that action step, it was a huge step for me. Oh my God, when people use the compliment and say, you know what, you look really pretty. And I'm just like, I don't think so. Yes, they are just being nice. They're just saying that out of whatever it is.
Mhm.
And being the person that's always like nice to other people, because I know how it feels, you know, and putting yourself in that spot because you know how it feels, then you kind of put yourself on that level where it's not about you anymore. It's about the person you're trying to serve, and knowing how much trouble they're also going through. And it took a long time to get there, to say, you know what, it's not about me when I post something on my story or I post a picture of myself. It's because I know somebody out there is suffering, is having struggles, needs services, because they are going through the same exact thing I was going through. And putting it in that perspective really helped me. That actually built my confidence, because it was like, it was hard to do it for me. But when it comes to doing it for somebody else, then it was like, okay, you know, like I can jive with that. I'm used to that. Like, I'm a freaking people pleaser. But in that process, and this is how I operate, in that process, people start responding. Thank you for posting that. Because I went through the same thing. You know, when you post your comics, I'm like, this is hilarious,
Oh,
because
thank you.
I go through the same thing. And then it makes you feel better about yourself, and that's how you build confidence. At least in my perspective, that's how I built confidence, because I couldn't do it for myself, so I did it for somebody else. And then eventually it's self-serving. Eventually you get hooked. And I post shit all the time. I'm just like, let me just post a video about how insecure I am today, and people are like, I can jive with that, you know, like, I understand what you're going through. So that's my 2 cents.
Oh my goodness. I love, thank you so much for sharing. That's actually a really great way to look at it. Sometimes on the journey to being self-confident, you kind of have to, you almost cheat the system. It almost feels like you're cheating the system. Like one of my favorite methods for kind of getting over being too self-aware is sometimes I'll get on and I'll almost criticize myself. I'll be like, look, okay, I got a cold sore. You see it? Here it is. Like, and it's, but the point of doing so was to kind of, first of all, I was calling it out and being like, before any of y'all call it out. But in doing so, I start to realize how many people don't care. People just didn't care, or were like, I didn't even notice. And I was like, oh, it stood out like a sore thumb to me. But it's stuff like that. It's just little things like that. So thank you for sharing that, Nikki. I see that Brittany and Kay said that they agreed with you. But yeah, anyone else have anything to add to that? I know we kind of started talking about fears and confidence.
Nikki. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
Go ahead.
There was something that Nikki said at the start where it was something along the lines of like growing up around people that are like high achievers, and I think she said something about like being around people that went to Harvard, and like there's a whole other element like in, I'm sure you're going to discuss that too, of like your environment that you're growing up in, where it feels almost like a competition, because like I'm the youngest on both sides of my family, and my sister is like 6 years older than me and has her own successful marketing agency, and like everyone in my family is like business owners. And so like growing up, I was like, oh, well, I need to do this and I need to do that. And like, I took like all the APs I could in high school and did dual enrollment, and then got scholarships into college. And like, then once I was in college, I was like, oh God, like, this isn't me. And like, what is happening? And it felt like growing up, like it was just like constantly like trying to compete with everyone that was around me. Cause then being in AP classes, you're like surrounded by people that are doing the same thing. And it's just like a whole crazy mindset that develops with that.
And then that mindset continues forward in your adult life, where all of a sudden you're surrounded by, people being like, now you need to get this certification and take this course. And now you need to be a 5-figure or whatever figure, like 6-figure entrepreneur. And it all starts all over again.
For sure. And then, yeah, like people are like, oh, I know you're going to do great things. You're going to do this and that. And then like, they like are projecting onto you, or it's like, you're going to do this, you need to do that. And like, and then you're like, oh, but do I want that? Or are you telling me to do that? So.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing again. Nicola, did you have something to add? 'Cause I think I saw you pop on earlier.
Yeah, I just wanted a quick add So what Nikki said, I actually discovered one of my insecurities. I'm from Slovakia, so English is not my first language. And I remember one of my teachers at high school telling me that my English is not good enough and I shouldn't be going like study abroad. And I totally kept it in my mind all these years. And now when I started to do like social media content, I was super self-aware, like, oh my God, you know, what if they're going to be like a typo or whatever? And eventually I understood where is it coming from. And now I'm just like, you know what? Fuck that. If someone doesn't like my content, they don't have to follow me. Like, I don't need to work with people who don't like me, you know? Why should I pretend to be someone else? Like,
I love that. Yeah. Why do you want to? That's the other thing, right? This is, I think we all kind of know this, but it's still hard to get into the mindset. But why do you want to work with people who don't like you? Who don't think, you know, who maybe like don't believe in something similar. The way I look at it is like, if I'm here without makeup and here just kind of looking kind of like a mess and being authentic, if someone doesn't like that, do I want to work with that person? So I don't care if that scares them away, because I don't really want to work with that person. Let me be honest. Like, if they don't want me showing up to my calls with no makeup, then it's a hard mindset to get into. I will say that. Like, it is very difficult to break into that, even if you know it, because we're people pleasers. Like, a lot of us turn into people pleasers. And Sam, I saw you nodding through all of what Nicola was saying too, because I know, I'm sure you relate. But yeah, okay. So next portion of this thing, we're going to talk about different types of imposter syndrome, and we're gonna make this a little bit fun because I want you all to share which one you resonate with the most. But I'm going to run through them first. Obviously, we were talking about this before. Step one to any of this is just self-awareness, and if you're here, you've probably done this a little bit. Essentially, the self-awareness piece, the most important thing you can do is recognize what you're doing when your imposter syndrome hits. So when you're feeling that imposter syndrome, whatever that might be, how does it show up in your life and what's making it worse? And that could be anything. It could be actually, like, you know, it could be mental illness coming up and making it worse. It could be, you know, lack of self-worth, it could be overwhelming thoughts, perfectionism, comparisonitis, ego, fear. There's a bunch of things that could be coming in and playing a part in this. So just keeping in mind that when you're doing this, that one of the best things you can do to start is to literally sit down. Well, let yourself feel. It's okay to feel, but just make sure you sit down and think, like, how is this showing up? How is it manifesting? So I can make sure that when this happens, I am aware that it is happening. Because awareness helps you kind of put a pause to it. But let's go through the types of imposter syndrome. And there are, people have come up with all sorts of types. I like these 5 that we come up through. And we're gonna go through all of them. You're probably going to relate to more than one, because I know I do. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through all of them, and then I'll have you all share in the chat or wherever which ones you relate to the most. So type of imposter syndrome number 1. I found this all very intriguing, but there's the perfectionist. I feel like that one's pretty self-explanatory, and most of us feel this one. This is the person who sets unrealistic expectations. That's most of us, right? They'll usually punish themselves for not achieving those expectations. And because they're setting them high, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like a constant loop of, let me set this huge, lofty goal, and now let me not hit it. And then it keeps happening, and you keep punishing yourself, and it's just a lot of negative reinforcement. The perfectionist tends to be a little more controlling because they want everything to be perfect. I also did not put this in here, but the perfectionist also tends to not do. The perfectionist tends to think, and that's why they're not hitting their goals, because they're sitting there thinking instead of doing. So if anyone relates to that, feel free to put that in the chat. Yes, I saw who relates to that. I feel like a lot of us relate to the perfectionist. I like this little GIF. I have GIFs for all of them, but yeah, basically Mary Poppins. So this is one type of imposter syndrome. So this is the type where it's like, you think that if you can make things as perfect as possible and hit these super high goals, then you're gonna be fine. You're not a fraud. This is basically you trying to prove to yourself you're not a fraud. What ends up happening is you're only feeling like you're actually proving you are one, because you're not setting tangible goals and steps along the way, and you're being too controlling. Yeah, but then not having enough time, that's the other piece of it. I just want you to be aware, if you are in this stage of the perfectionist, you'll hear this a million times, but messy action is better than inaction. And that's always going to be true because at least you're doing something. If you're not doing anything, then you're never going to take a step towards that goal. You're just going to sit there and think and then be like, why is nothing happening? If you know Myers-Briggs, if you're an ENFJ, that's probably what you've been stuck in. If you don't know Myers-Briggs, ignore what I just said. Blah, blah, blah. The expert. Okay, this is one I've actually seen in one of my clients as well. I'm not going to call her out, but I've seen this before. This is the person who feels like, okay, well, if I just learn all the things, then I won't be an imposter. So constantly fearing being inexperienced and not having enough knowledge, not having the skills. And basically this person, and if this is you, you're basically taking courses, certifications. You're just constantly learning. And I like that quote that Annalia just shared, by the way. 20 minutes of doing something is better than thinking of doing something for 20 hours. Yes, yes. There's only so much pre-thought you can put into something, guys. Take it from an overthinker. Ah, yes, ENFP in the house, I see. Thank you for anyone who knows Myers-Briggs. This is what I do. Anyway, Crystal's an ENFP too, guys, so you guys should connect. But yeah, the expert is a really fun one. You're going to see these people, they're just always learning. These are the people that, again, they're always taking a course. They're always, they're constantly taking in information. And similar to perfectionist, they're not doing anything with it. They're just learning, but they're not putting into practice. And then they're just like, wow, I know all this stuff. Why is nothing happening? Just so you know, just knowing something doesn't actually make it happen. But what's usually happening here is that you're staying in the comfort zone of learning. So if you were like a really good student, this could be you. Of someone who's just like, well, I'm really comfortable learning something and memorizing things and taking notes and and taking quizzes. And oh, wow, if that's you and you get really stuck in that zone of learning rather than doing, that's going to hold you back. Also, this GIF is very relatable to me because I was 100% this person last year. I've gotten out of it, thankfully. Yeah, no, learning is good, by the way. I'm not saying learning is not good. It's just when you take it to a point where that's all you do, all you're doing is learning and you're not doing anything with it. If you're not balancing it, that's the problem. So let me know in the chat if you relate to that. I saw someone say, oh my God, it's me. There you go. Here's another one, type of imposter syndrome. This is my mom, by the way. She's not here, so she can't get mad at me for it. Also, I saw Maya just said, I have a fear to show my knowledge to others because of lack of confidence, I would say. Yeah, the master's and the PhD. Yeah, so it's a lack of confidence in what you actually know. So you just keep learning until you're thinking like, okay, well, I'll get to a point where I'll finally feel comfortable knowing enough, right? But that never happens. Next type, the superwoman. This is the person who's an absolute workaholic. They get anxious when they're not working. This is actually partially me. Like this is someone who just does not know how to stop working. And if they're not working, which maybe they were told they shouldn't, they like taking a break, they feel like something's wrong. They get anxious. And usually this type of person is addicted to the validation from working, not the results. So this is a person at work who's addicted to people being like, oh my God, you're such a hard worker. Oh my God, thank you for doing that thing. Oh my God, like you are like the person that runs this company. Like, again, this is my mom. And then usually criticism is a huge blow because you feel like you're putting in all this work and now someone's just criticized you. Again, not all these types are going to resonate with everyone, but if this resonates with you, let me know. Just know that obviously self-care is super important. Yes, if you're all of them, that's also normal because I relate at least a little bit to all of them. The natural genius, again, we're talking about this again, likely grew up with straight A's, honor roll, did really, really well in college, took a master's, just everyone expects great things out of them because they got straight A's basically. Or again, could be similar, but in a different area of life. Maybe they were the genius in theater and music, or maybe they were the genius in sports. Similar concept. They believe they have to be naturally good at everything. And if not, they'll likely avoid that thing like the plague. So that's that whole lack of exposure to failure thing. If you did really, really well in something growing up. Oh, does someone want to say something? Oh, okay, really? I thought I heard someone talk. If you were doing really, really well growing up, maybe in school, but then like maybe you're exposed, okay, let's talk about making eggs, making an omelet. And then if you try it the first time and you fail, or if you try it even a few times and you fail and you feel like, okay, well, I'm never going to do that again, or I'm really nervous to do that again. That's usually kind of where that feeling comes from. Or, maybe you're afraid to just try anything else new because you're afraid that you won't be good at it. And usually the fear isn't that you're not going to be good at it eventually, but that you won't be good at it quickly. Yeah, I see Brittany said we avoid making a meatloaf now because you failed at it once or twice. But yeah, and this actually also comes with the picking up hobbies thing. Like I just saw Analia mention this, and that's really a good point. This is the person like maybe you'll pick up a hobby, but you're not good at it right away, and you get really frustrated trying to learn it, so you toss it to the side. You get bored of it, but it's usually not because you're bored. It's usually because you're done with failing at it. So that's kind of a similar idea too. We're not all going to be this guy over here, y'all. Sorry. And then there's the soloist, and the GIF is loading. That's fine. Maybe it won't actually. It was Thanos. It was supposed to be Thanos being like, I'll just do this myself, about to snap people. Just me and my nerdy self making nerdy jokes. But this is usually the person that believes that asking for help kind of shows their inferiority or phoniness. Like you're too afraid to maybe ask for someone's help. If you're here, you might not. If you're here at this event, you might not actually struggle from this as much, but some of us still will. We're exceedingly independent. We feel like we could do everything on our own. And there's usually that fear that if you ask someone for help, they're going to start treating you like maybe you're somewhat a little bit inferior, or you feel like maybe they'll expose you as a fraud because you're asking. You shouldn't be asking if you're the expert, right? And then also might refuse help when it's offered because they might see it as a criticism of abilities. We've probably all met someone like this at one point in life, and it can be very frustrating, especially for those of us that like to help. So yeah, those are kind of the 5 big types. There are obviously others, but I would love to hear in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, which one or ones you resonate with the most. Does anyone want to share?
Sure, I'll share.
All right. Kind of like unshare it. I'll put them in here. I'll put them in the chat so y'all can still see it. Go ahead, Ariel.
Oh, okay. So I definitely related, and it's funny, I'm the ENFJ that that was called out, but I relate to the perfectionist and the expert definitely. And what I find interesting is that like those two things really represent a lot of like childhood trauma that I've also like internalized growing up. And like how we were talking about how growing up around people who like, compare us or like give us like set us to a standard that isn't our own, that really like distorts our own definition of our own success. I feel like that is really like what contributes heavily to the imposter syndrome, because it's like imposter syndrome. It's like if we're living and authentically trying to meet up to people's standards that aren't even our own, then it's like we almost get used to that feeling that it's almost like when you are yourself and you are feeling authentic and aligned, sometimes like it's hard to even recognize that and discern the difference between when you're in alignment and when you're not. Mm-hmm. And I also was thinking about how when you were like, why do we want to work with or please people who we don't even freaking like? And I kind of was just thinking about how it's almost like wanting to please those people that like we maybe family, maybe it's friends that like kind of distorted that definition for us. And like, it's also this feeling of like, oh my gosh, like we'd have to accept that we're already good enough also. This feeling of like, oh, maybe it's just that I'm already good enough. And it's not even about trying to earn my way there, but removing the barriers to my own self-acceptance. I feel like that's something I've really learned about imposter syndrome, like a lot, and especially like learning about myself as an ENFJ, actually in Dami and Crystal's program, that it was really about accepting myself already as I am. And that's what made Gretchen, my inner imposter, really shut up. And that like this perfectionism and this like mentality of like you have to know everything, that was literally another person. That was literally another person who was outside of me telling me that growing up. And once I recognized that, I was able to be like, okay, like this isn't even what you want. Like, what do you want? And I think it's really about getting to know yourself and like having a more intimate friendship with your own self, I feel like is a way to also battle that imposter syndrome, because it's like, then you'll know when you're really being a fraud and when you're really not.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ariel. Thank you for sharing your experience with that. It does often come down to a bit of like what happened in childhood and how we're treated in childhood and all of that, right? But thank you for calling yourself out there too. I appreciate that. I also love what Nicholas said here, that sometimes we take our knowledge for granted. I want you all to know that there are things that you think are common sense that not everyone thinks is common sense. There are things that you know, and maybe you think like, oh, well, everyone knows that. Well, that's not true. That's just not true. And feel free to like, to share that knowledge with people, even if someone already knows it. There are gonna be plenty of people that don't, and that's totally fine. I also want you all to also accept that you have your inner beliefs and your inner values. And Crystal taught me this, actually, Crystal being the amazing person she is, that we all have some sort of vision for the world that we would like to create. And I know it might seem, and to me, sometimes it can seem kind of selfish to be like, well, no one's ever going to want to be, not everyone's going to want to be a part of this world that I want to create. Like, we're all so different, but just embodying that vision a little bit more and knowing where you want to go and who you want to bring along, people are going to want to join you. Not everyone. That's fine. Doesn't have to be everyone. Not everyone's going to agree with every belief you have or every value you have, and that's okay. Just bring in the people that do. And feel free to share some of that about yourself, the things that you know, the things that you've come to value and believe, the journey you've been on. Don't be afraid to share some of that. You don't have to share all of it, but don't be afraid to share some of that so that someone else can join in that world with you. And it makes you feel so much more less alone. I promise. I promise. Anyone else want to add on to that or have anything else they would like to add? Or want to share what types they are?
I'll add on to Ariel because it is all that self like doubt and muck from the past that shows up. For me, it was because I just wanted somebody to love me. And like growing up in that environment where everybody else is you're compared to everybody else, and then having people say, it's projected onto you, like you have to be this certain way because maybe I didn't get the opportunity to. So now it's like your job. So that was my parents, like realizing, and I had a lot of resentment for my parents because they, at one point, they were complimenting me and saying, you know what, you're doing so well. I was working when I was very young just to sustain the family, business. And for them to say like, oh my God, you're doing so well, blah, blah, blah. And then switching all of a sudden when it hit time for me to go to college and saying, you're so stupid, you're not doing all of these things. Like, why aren't you leaving the family business to go pursue your own path? Well, I was told I was supposed to be this way for so long that I just didn't know. I didn't recognize whatever it is, like what part of that is me, what part of that is actually true to who I am. And now that it's like my eyes are open, and for all of you who are like, oh my God, I agree with all the imposter syndrome, that was me. Like every single one you went through, I was like, check, the perfectionist, that, like every single thing, because I was just absorbing everyone's energy and saying, you have to be smart, you have to be perfect, you have to be this, you have to be that. And I was like, then I must do it. I must do it because I personally wanted love and acceptance. So I just did it for love, acceptance, self-acceptance, because that's all I knew. And if you guys are like still stuck in that, what helps me, the personality test is a big thing. And then I've recently got into human design, which I am so enthusiastic about. If you guys know anything about human design, it basically says you are unique to who you are. So like your energy that you carry, not everyone's a workaholic. And I realized this for me, I am a freaking workaholic. It's because I have the energy to do so. But I put myself in the box of I'm a workaholic because I wanted to do this for other reasons. That is incorrect. So it's distinguishing that.
And it's always really important, the reason why you do things and understanding what that actual reason is, what the real reason is. Thank you so much for sharing, Nikki. And I know Crystal's also into human design a little bit too. She knows a little bit about it, so you guys can talk. Out of curiosity, does anyone else know what human design is? You ever heard of it? I know Leah does, I'm sure. But yeah, sorry if my mom's yelling in the background. Anyway, does anyone else want to share maybe if they resonated with any of those types? Anything that came up for them? Any aha moments?
Oh, I'll do some sharing. I think my two biggest ones for me was the perfectionist and the expert. And I think I agree with everyone else. I think it's just how we were raised as well. With my mom, it's just like I was always taught like, oh, she's the good kid in the family and stuff. So I didn't want to like mess that up. And I always have that fear of failure. So this is why I'm constantly learning, but then not doing anything. And then I almost like get mad at myself. It's like, oh, well, this is why we're not succeeding, because you're not doing anything. And it's like I'm hard on myself again. And it's just this constant cycle of like, I feel like I need to be perfect and avoid failure. But it's like you said, you're better off being what they were saying before, doing 20 minutes of something than sitting there and thinking like for 20 hours. So I feel like that really connects with me a lot. And I think some of that also has to do back with where I was currently working, because I used to be a recruiter with an employment agency, and it was a very heavy sales job, and it was based on commission. And every day it's like you had to have your numbers up, you had to be perfect, and it's like you can always do more. And this is where the mentality went, and the anxiety just skyrockets. So I know it's a long journey because our whole life we've been taught how to do this, but it's a long journey to get out of that habit there. And yeah, I don't know. I just really connected with those two things. And I actually have two books that I feel like have been helping me a lot that I'll put in the chat below. One's like a self-compassion workbook, which I think your coach Sam, she mentioned. It's so good. And, they talk a lot about how you would talk to a friend if they were in the same situation. And I think it goes back to like having that community. How you want others to feel. Yeah, definitely. And then the other book I'm reading is Atomic Habits, which I think is also a great book. It talks about like how we all think in the mindset, oh, I'll be happy when I reach this goal. But it never really comes. We have to be happy with ourselves first, and just, there's other things to life besides the job and the money.
So true. One of the big things I like to share, again, we like to talk about, is the whole, you don't reach happiness and fulfillment by succeeding. It's the other way around. You succeed by being happy and fulfilled. So essentially the happiness and fulfillment comes first. So if you try and focus on being like, well, I'm gonna reach success, whatever that weird vague idea in your head is, usually, and you think that's gonna make you happy and fulfilled, often that's not what happens.
And it's funny because I think that's what happened. I love my mom, I do, but her whole life she's been saying that to herself too. And even now she's got like 3 to 4 years before she retires, and she's like, oh, I'll be so much happier when I retire. But my question is, what next? What are you doing next? It's not an end goal. So I'm trying to get out of that cycle, because that's not the answer.
it's constantly, and tell me if you all can relate to this too, but it's just constantly like it's like, once I reach the next step, I'll be happy. And then when you get there, it's like, once I do the next thing, I'll do this. It's like when we were kids, they were told you, okay, well, now you're going to go to college and you're going to learn all these things, and then you're going to get a job, and then you're going to retire. And you keep thinking at each of these steps that you're going to be a little bit happier and learn something new and be a little more yourself. And it always feels like you're just like, well, once I get to this place, then it'll be fine, right? But that's never how that works. So you have to work on the being fine now. Do that now. Don't wait till some arbitrary deadline for you to be fine. Like, you can be fine now.
I'm gonna share something if you allow me. So listening to all these beautiful ladies in here, yesterday night I sat down and I was watching this cartoon. I don't know how you guys like cartoons, but I really love them because they have such huge messages behind them.
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I love that. I finished watching that for the second time after like 10 years. with my niece. But yesterday we was watching this movie called Soul. I think it was made last year. Okay, Brittany. And that was the point, like the main point of that movie was that it's all about small things, because this guy goes, like, he used to be a music teacher, and his mom like used to pressure him like, just be a teacher because you have the benefits, the pension, blah blah blah. But he wanted to be a musician. Then he had an idol, which I forgot the name of that lady. And the moment that he gets the chance to play in her band, he falls in that tour and he dies. And I was like so sad. But then, you know, like in the end of the movie, it's all
spoiler alert for
that.
everyone.
Yeah. Sorry. It was great. It was great. Like, I felt so emotional and I just so connected in me so much. I'm like, wow. Because there are some small stuff, like even being able to call your parents or your mom. And sometimes there are a lot of stuff that we take it for granted. But then on the other hand, like the way we were raised, like always, like our parents might have compared us to our siblings or our cousins. And I don't know, like if they know what like damage it did to us. I don't think like it was intentional. Probably they did it to, you know, to push us. But you know, it's our job now to accept ourselves like just the way we are. And we are great because you see so many other people that like have zero background in what they're doing and they call themselves entrepreneurs, and you're just mad. You're like, hey, but wait, because I'm way more capable than this person, or I know better, or I've studied, or I have like the right background. But see where we are. Like sometimes we're beating ourselves up for stuff that at the end of the day, like they are not like that serious as we think they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got a huge point. I feel like Leah wants to say something. Is that what the raised hand thing is? I've never seen that, so I was like, wait, what does this mean?
Yeah, I love the movie Soul. It's such a good one. We watched a movie called The Croods last night. It was like on
I love The
Netflix,
Croods too. That's fun.
Yeah,
I love animated
it had a
movies.
really good message. But what I wanted to say was, now I like can't remember what it was. So I think that like the thing with always wanting the next thing and like the next validation and thinking once I have this, I'll be happy. I think that's such a big part of comparison with entrepreneurs, because we think, well, once I have 10 people viewing my lives, then I'll feel more comfortable. Or once I have 100 story views, then I'll start showing up as that next level person. Or like once I have X people in my group, then I can feel. But it never works, because once you get that many people in your group, then you just want the next number of people and the next and the next. And like, that's why we have to drop being validated by those numbers, because it's not meaningful. It doesn't really matter. And we put so much of our self-worth into it. And I feel like that's what I did for so long. Like my self-worth was really attached to those numbers and really attached to like how much money I was making every month in my business. And it meant something about me and who I was and whether or not I was seen as successful. And when I kind of started dropping all of that, then I just was able to feel good and be happy and not just be constantly worried about if I had all the right numbers, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what both of you guys just said is completely true, right? Like you can't, and I've heard a bunch of people talk about this too, but quantifying success, I know it's helpful for the sake of goal setting. It can be helpful so that like you have something to aim for, but like to treat that as like, that's the end all be all, like, you know, if you hit that number, you're happy. It's different. It doesn't really work out that way. But you're so right. Like once you start detaching yourself from this need to always be going to the next thing and always be succeeding at the next thing, suddenly you have maybe you only have one client, and all of a sudden you can serve that client to the best of your abilities, and that's success to you, and that's fine. Like that's okay if that's success to you. Like you don't have to be doing this full time. You don't have to be earning a ton of money from it. You don't have to be earning a ton of money from anything, really, for it to be something that means a lot to you and to be successful at it. And I know what Cleona was talking about with Soul. one of my favorite things about that is it showed like the extremes, the side that's like super practical, get a teacher, get a pension, and then the side that's like, I need to follow my spark, my passion. But it showed how both of those extremes are missing the middle ground of balance, where it's like, well, your passion doesn't have to be the thing that gets you that practical side. They can be separate, and you can also just enjoy the little things in life. You can enjoy the little things that are here, because if we're always living for the next thing instead of living like the things that are around us right now, then we're going to look back and regret that we missed out on it. Because that's what, if everyone hasn't seen this, by the way, I'm going to share a video. I'm just going to type the name of it so you can look it up, but it's called Everybody Dies, but Not Everybody Lives. It's a spoken word poem by this guy called Prince Ia on YouTube, but it's amazing. It basically talks about just that, and like basically letting you know that, you know, if follow your spark, like don't stop living life for the next thing. And because once you get to the end, you're going to look back and regret all the things you didn't do, which is always the problem. If you talk to any old person, that's half the time what they regret, all the things they didn't do. Not the things they did, the things they didn't do. Yeah, anyone else have anything to add to that? Everyone's been sharing some really great things. I'm glad I'm getting this on recording. I'm gonna have to look back on this sometimes myself. All right, okay, so we have about 45 more minutes, awesome. If any of you all, by the way, ever need to step out, take a quick breather, go to the bathroom, take a drink, whatever that is, feel free to do so. You have the liberty to do that. We're all adults here. But I'm going to start sharing some strategies. Now that we're talking about imposter syndrome, what we've dealt with, all of that, we're going to start talking about different strategies we can actually use that can kind of help you get thinking about it and journaling about it and all of that in the right ways. And there's going to be many more beyond what I would be sharing with you, but hopefully some of these give you some new ideas. Wait, let me move along, if it will move along. Perfect. Okay, this is one of my personal favorites, and this is why I put this first. It's an imagining exercise. You can use this kind of as like a sit there and actually imagine, or you could use this as a journaling exercise. So you would have to think of every person that you believe right now is better than you, or that you admire or envy in some way. And we probably have some of these people. Like, think of them right now, write them down, whatever that might be. Like, feel free to call yourself out on these people. It's okay if you, in your head, you think you envy them. Like, I know that feels like a bad thing to say. It's fine. It's okay. This is why we do these exercises. But be honest with yourself. So the key here is to kind of imagine that that person is struggling with the same mindset problem that you're having. So, for example, I'm going to imagine, let me think of someone that I've envied at one point in my life. I'm just going to go with Taylor Swift, because that was a person that I used to like hate because I actually envied her. Now I'm kind of neutral, but I still kind of hated her. But again, part of the reason for that had a little bit to do with being like, why is she so successful? How come she got all the success? Why does she have so much presence and I don't? How come she's able to create all these songs and record them, put it out there? I can't do that. Like, I love songwriting. Why am I not putting anything out there? Like, it was stuff like that. I went through a lot of that process in my head. I see someone's putting things in the chat. It won't show it to me right now. I'll see it eventually. But then basically what you would do is imagine that Taylor Swift is sitting here struggling with imposter syndrome, because I'm sure she does sometimes. I'm sure she's sitting there sometimes and struggling with this idea. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's talked about it before. But I'm just giving you, just an example. But imagine what that would look like for them. Like, imagine that you are Taylor Swift, or whoever this person is, sitting there being like, oh my God, this singer, like, is so much better than me. Oh my God, they're going to call me out for having, playing really horribly or not being a good performer. Imagine that you're this person and just start putting yourself in their shoes. It doesn't matter if this is entirely true or not, because what matters is that a lot of it probably is true. A lot of what you're thinking they might be thinking might actually be true. A lot of the struggles they're probably thinking of, which means that if they can be admired and still struggle with these things, so can you. The other side of this is taking it a step further. Get on actual coffee chats, talks, Zoom calls, whatever the heck, meet with people. I know it's COVID, but there's lots of different options with other people in your industry who are further along with you. This is basically taking the same exercise, but taking it a step further. And what this exercise is you're literally just getting them, asking them about their struggles, like being like, hey, like, I've been struggling with this thing. Like, have you struggled with this? And next thing you know, you hear from this person who you've always thought has been so successful, so great at what they're doing, all of that. And most people, especially if you connect with them well and make a connection, they can be willing to talk about this and be like, oh yeah, like I think about that all the time. I think about how, you know, I'm never going to chalk up or someone's going to tell me I'm a bad coach. So by doing this, again, the point is to listen. And the point is to understand that these people that you admire and even envy in some way, or kind of put on this pedestal in whatever way that might be, they go through these things too. And I know it's just so easy to distance ourselves from them and put them on that pedestal. I'm going to get like mildly religious. We do the same thing with Jesus. We put him on this pedestal as someone who's so distant from us. Oh my God, we can never be Jesus. When the point of, and again, this is like religious stuff, but if you are Christian, the point of Jesus was supposed to be that he is attainable. So it's the same concept. We put these people on a pedestal. They're so far away from us, but they're all attainable. So that's one exercise that I like to do. Does anyone have any thoughts about that? Anyone do this themselves? This is my favorite one.
I am actually, I've been reaching out to people on Instagram or, you know, just people that I admire or follow or whatever. And I must say, I was super surprised at how people are willing to talk about their journey. And I like to ask about their beginnings because that's what we forget to talk about. And a lot of people failed miserably. And just their willingness to talk about it and share it, and they are so helpful and they offer you so much free value. I was totally, you know, my mind was like, so I highly recommend it. Like, don't be afraid. They are normal people just like you and they struggle with the same things. And if someone doesn't want to share, it's okay, you know, you don't need to share with everyone.
Yeah, really go out there and start like asking to connect with people. A lot of people want to talk about it, right? Like a lot of us are like, please talk to me. But don't think that follower count or anything means that they're better than you. Don't think that just because they're getting this many likes on this thing means that they're better than you. Whatever that is, feel free to reach out to people and actually connect with them, because again, one of the best ways to get past imposter syndrome is to actually connect with real people like we're doing now. And realize that you are not the only one. And all of a sudden it really does help, especially over time as you're going along. Does anyone agree with that? Does anyone have a community? Can they? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I feel like when I hear somebody else's story and I'm like, it gives me hope on my end. I'm like, okay, they went through it. It was rough. Everyone has their struggles, but it does offer some hope. And I think I think we all need that after last year though too. So.
No kidding. But it also, again, so like we were saying before, it's you naturally put this distance between yourself and the people that you envy or admire. Again, putting them up on this pedestal of like, almost like they're just not attainable. And even if you are taking steps and trying to build your business, you still have like, there's still usually this mental block that's telling you like, well, I can't be that. Like, well, that's, you know, I'm not going to be that. But by talking to these people and learning about them and realizing what struggles they go through, even if they're not talking about it on their social media, some of them are, some of them aren't, but actually one-to-one, because that's usually the most authentic way you're going to hear about it, is the way that you're going to realize, oh my God, they are attainable actually. Like, oh, they go through this exact same struggle. Wow. That was a mind-blowing thing for me when I first started talking to people. And then actually I think for me, it was when I like breached the 1,000 follower thing. And I was like, so certain. I was like, okay, when I hit 1,000 followers, like people are going to see me as an authority. And then I realized I got there and I started talking to other people who were in that same space. And I was like, oh, we're all the same. Nothing really changed, but the fact that now I have 4 digits in my follower count. Yay. Yeah, learn that. Leah wants to say something.
Yeah, I love that you brought up celebrities. I think it's so interesting. I know like it's Emma Watson, that's the Harry Potter one, right? I want to get her and Emma Roberts mixed up, but She talks about it. Other celebrities have said like they'll win an Oscar and they hear their name announced and they're like, they called the wrong name. I'm gonna get up there and take this award, and I'm gonna find out it was wrong.
It's gonna be a Moonlight situation.
Yeah, or like they get this starring role and they're on set the first day and they're like, they're gonna find out they got the wrong girl. Like there's no way they and it's funny because we do put people on pedestals. We think, how could Emma Watson possibly ever feel that way? Because she's magical. It's like, but everyone's just a human, right? And everyone has their own skills and talents, and maybe they've just been doing it longer than someone else. But I think it's really, really good advice that you give to take people off pedestals, because we're all just humans. Hello. And even if someone has 20,000 followers, like a lot of those people bought those followers anyway.
No.
So like,
I want to point out, by the way, guys, if you look at someone who has like a bunch of followers, I swear to God, look at their engagement rate, because you're going to see a lot of these people have a lot lower engagement rate, and it's not a bad thing. It's not like, oh, they're doing badly necessarily. Like, it's just more of those things where put things in perspective. These people with 20,000 followers maybe have like, you see them a lot of time, they'll have like 100 likes, which maybe seems a lot to you, but in proportion isn't actually a ton. And again, it's putting in perspective. It's understanding that you're doing a lot better than you think you are. And maybe they're struggling too. Maybe they're freaking out about their engagement rate. Maybe they're like, who knows? I still do that. There are times when I'm sitting there, like, I'll literally look at the percentage of the engagement rate like every day and be like, oh my God, I need to do better. It's totally relatable. Ariel?
I wanted to share something too, is that like, I actually started working at the beginning of the year with a stylist coach who I super have looked up to as a personal stylist for like since the beginning of my journey. And I remember like, it was such a like it was like something I was excited about, but I also felt difficult because it was someone that I like had put on a pedestal and like really idolized, and like was almost a little bit like afraid of, in like a way where I was intimidated. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to tell her like everything about myself, where I'm at, be very vulnerable with this person that I really admire. But it really actually humanized her, and like making someone that I like was like aspiring to be like as my mentor, that actually really helped me see that she was like, yeah, when I was like your age, I was exactly in the same place as you were. And that really gave me a lot of hope and made me feel like, oh, like this is actually attainable, like this is possible for me. And yeah, like reaching out to those people and making them actually your mentors and your coaches actually really helps. And she actually gave me a journal prompt that was like, because she told me there's not really much of a difference between you and me now. And I remember my inner imposter like screamed inside. I was like, what? No, I can't accept that.
There's
and
no
she
way.
Journal on it. And she was like, journal on the evidence that you're already living like the reality that you want. And there was so much more evidence for like me being closer to my goals and my dreams than I ever expected. So even like sitting down, being really intentional and writing down like how am I already like living the life I already want? And there's actually so much more than you realize, I guess. So I love her. She's amazing. She literally like sent me flowers yesterday. She's so sweet. She's amazing. And like now I see her as a wholly realized person, like not just like someone on a pedestal who is like out of reach, but a real person who now I have a relationship with, a friendship with. So yeah.
I saw this Michaela just put in here. I've had to learn not to compare myself where I am now with someone who's been in business for 10 years. Yeah, that's a thing. This is why we get impatient because it's not even a fair comparison. It absolutely isn't comparing, like they say, comparing like your, chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. But, and I like that you mentioned this, Michaela, too. I have to consciously think about this. When we're struggling with imposter syndrome, it's hard to remember that in the moment. That's fine. That's why we get self-aware, and then we have to consciously remind ourselves, and I know it sometimes seems stupid, but constantly remind yourself, that person is in chapter 20, I'm on chapter 5, it's fine. I haven't gotten there yet, it's fine.
Dominic, on Instagram, there is this guy that I follow. I really love him. His name is Gary V. I don't know if you girls heard about him.
Oh yeah.
He talks a lot about patience and being in chapter 1 and some comparing yourself to somebody that might be in
I got that from Gary Vee.
So I feel like he's one of those guys that talks a lot about patience, and I so appreciate him. And there is no post that I don't relate with him, and I always share with my friends. And he's the kind of guy that can call you out when he says, and there's this funny thing, he says that you are not a perfectionist. It's just you are overthinking it too much. And just like that, just how he calls you out, he lifts you up, and he's amazing. But we really need to connect more about people that talk about patience, because he this is what he says. Like in the beginning, he used to work at his father's business, wine business. 15 years, he said, in that cellar, until he came up with this wine library and blah blah blah. And look, now he owns like a big media, like VaynerMedia. He's a big fan of jet sports, and he's like very ambitious about buying that sport club, which is a great thing. But he really like stresses this thing about being patient and persistent in what you do.
That he does.
The moment that I heard you saying that, comparing yourself to somebody that's the chapter number 20, I'm like, yeah, she definitely follows that guy.
Oh, absolutely. I've known Gary Vee for literally since he had Wine Library back in 2007. I don't know. It's been a long time. Because he used to have those Wine Library vlogs. That was like a whole thing. But, or was that Casey? Yeah, that was him. But yeah, no, and also just understand, and here's something else that I want people to understand too. Like, obviously we have our inspirational figures we look up to. Do understand that not everyone's way of inspiring and motivating is going to work for you, and that's okay. Like, if you don't resonate with something that, if someone shares something with you, for example, like I shared my everybody dies, not everyone lives, not everyone's going to resonate with that. And that's okay. You don't like, not everyone's inspired in the same way. You have to find the way that you are inspired and you are motivated, whether that's learning from someone, whether it's you doing that for yourself, whether it's anything else. So I just want everyone to understand that too, because I love Gary Vee too, but I also know that some people get rubbed the wrong way by him, and not in a like they're necessarily rejecting what he's saying. They just think he's too.
I know.
I think it depends on the person.
He's a great person.
I think some people like to be called out, and some people don't like to be called out as much. And I think there's a balance where you can.
That's how much you want to be sincere with yourself, because there are a lot of stuff that we don't like listening to it. Because, say for example, you are telling me like, "Oh, you're overthinking it too much." I'm like, oh, "What do you know about me?" Like, but if you are like humble and you're like, "Yeah, she might be right," or yeah, like it's true. I am like this because this 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons. But yeah, it's all about like how honest we want to be with ourselves. Like whether we like it or not, we deeply down know that thing is true. It's just a matter of time to accept it.
I mean, one of the biggest lessons I ever learned, and this is still hard to understand, by the way, is that you can't control anyone else. Like, you can only control yourself. Like, you can't control what anyone thinks. You can't change their minds. And I know everyone's like, "Oh, but you can. You should try." No, you can't actually change someone's mind. You can give them the tools to do so. But you can't change someone's mind. You can't make them do anything. You can't make them act a certain way. You can't make them say something. And letting go of some of that control over everything going on around you gives you the time to be like, what can I do about this? Like, if it's bothering you, what can I do about it? Or maybe I need to completely let it go. Like, this is true for anything. I just want you to like, that's the biggest thing in imposter syndrome too, is we then try so hard to control things, because we're so afraid. So when you start fearing things, you start to try and control. Releasing some of that expectation to be able to control is gonna help. And then that way you can focus on, well, what can I do? Not what can anyone else do. You can't make clients sign on with you. You can't force them. You can't even really convince them. You can try. But there's no way to make a client do what you want them to do, or make another coach do what you think they should be doing. Only thing you can actually do is focus on yourself and what you are doing. So, and that actually clears up your mind a lot, because every time I remind myself that, I'm all of a sudden just like, okay, well, what can I do? I can do these 2 things. Oh, well, cool. I'll just do those 2 things. And it kind of helps because my mind can be so cluttered. And I realized, at least for me, if anyone can relate, let me know, that a lot of my mind is cluttered with worrying about other people and things and what they're doing and all the things they're not doing. Like, for example, the client thing. Why is no one signing on with me? Why does no one want to talk to me? Why is no one responding to my DMs? Why aren't they engaging with this post? Why is no one liking this? You can't control that. So first, that's rule number one. I like how Analia just said, sometimes it's good to hear how other people put things we think about into other words that we wouldn't string together ourselves. Yes, this is why I have this, by the way, because I can't always put words together properly. So I have you guys do it for me. Thank you. I appreciate you. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, let's move along. Let's move along. I got more strategies to share. We'll see if we have. Okay, there we go. This is one of my. This is actually my other favorite. That's why I put it as number 2. And I have my clients have done this and they love it. So I like sharing this. Same concept. You're taking someone you envy, admire. Because let's be honest, when we have imposter syndrome, it usually comes with comparing ourselves to other people. So why don't we just call ourselves out and pull those people out and start to think about it. So find that someone you envy or admire. I like to do the envy one because it's more negative usually in your head. So usually you'll have a lot more to work on there. Write down 3 things that you think that they are better at than you. This is you calling out your beliefs. This is you being like, well, I think that they're prettier and I think that they write better captions, and just write down 3 things or more, but at least 3. And then write down 3 ways that you are different than them. And I say different because usually what makes you different is what also will make you quote unquote better than them. And I put quote unquote because I don't like to judge people in that way, but think of it as different. So for example, someone that pops into my head, I think of it as like, well, I think that my content is more fun. I just have more fun with my content. So, that's different. I don't wear makeup and I like that. I think that shows me because that's me. That's just my personal opinion. Things like that. Just, and then you do this for as many people as you want. And this is one of my favorite games to play when I start comparing myself to these people. And I have like a list of people that every so often I see them on my feed and I start going into that spiral of comparison. And so then I have to do this and remind myself that I am not them. They are not me. I can't control what they do. I can only do what I do. And this is how I'm different. And this is why I should just be focusing on me. So again, what makes you different ultimately is what will make you better than them in someone else's eyes. Some person out there who wants to work with you is going to look at you and look at those things that make you different from that person and be like, I want to work with that person because XYZ. But it's easier when you can recognize that yourself too, rather than thinking you just got lucky. Does anyone have any thoughts about that? Did anything come up for anyone? No? All right.
I'll say something because I have to go.
Oh, okay.
But I'll add something to that. And I think it was really important because I just figured this out for myself recently, was seeing everybody's feed that like other like business coaches or other coaches, their feed would be a post, like a picture and then a caption, or a post of them like a visual and then a caption. And I'm like, I'm really bad at that, right? Like I can do it, but it doesn't light me up. It doesn't make me happy. So shifting into what am I good at? And I realized, after practice, I'm just really good at talking to people like normal people. And I don't have to show up and be, like, I understand the concept of healing, like spiritual work. I have friends who are really, really geared towards that side. And people will say, I have a feeling I was supposed to meet you at the gym today because you just like blew my mind. Like you changed the course of my life. And I was like, how did I even do that? Like, I don't know how to express that in a post. I don't know how to show that. So I'm just like, I'm gonna just show up as me. Like I just say stuff and people get it. And I'm like, then I'm just gonna do that, right? Like why would I put myself in a box and try to post pretty pictures and visuals that will take me hours to make? And that's not my strong suit. That doesn't speak to me. So really sitting down and say, what speaks to me, what makes me happy, and what can I do and not have to exert yourself. I think we get stuck in that pattern of I have to do something more to show up as more authentic, as more, like
when it's often less. It's often less.
It's just like being you, like you just gotta be you. And what blows me away each time is that's the message that people actually enjoy more. For people who actually want to connect with me, that's the message they want to enjoy more. So that's all I wanted to say. I do have to leave.
Oh, wait. Do you mind sticking around just for a quick, I want to take a screenshot of all of us smiling or something like that. All right. Y'all ready? Okay, awesome. So I'm just gonna, anyone who's not on camera, you're totally fine. I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1, and everyone smile. So 3, 2, 1. Yeah, awesome. Thank you all. Okay, and thank you so much, Nikki. I just want to take that picture before you left. So thank you so much for sharing that. And if anyone says anything interesting afterwards in response to you, I will let you know.
Yes, please. I'll watch the rest of this.
That's true.
It was super nice connecting with everybody. And I'll see you guys. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's. Oh yeah, I forgot to say that. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Have fun. All right. Awesome. But yeah, I think what she said is really, really important. She also put her handle in the chat, so make sure to follow her if you're interested in hearing more. Also, thank you all for doing that really quick photo. I was going to do it at the end, but she had to leave. Anyway, did anyone else take anything away from the whole comparison game work, I guess, game?
I just wanted to say, like, I know one thing I picked up on, I think someone else said something about it in their stories, is that like, if you feel like there's someone in particular that you're comparing yourself to a lot, you can just unmute them, or you can mute them on Instagram instead of like unfollowing them. Like, just go ahead and mute them, and that way you're not seeing it on your feed and then getting in this loop of being like, oh, but they're so much better and blah blah. And then the other thing is, yeah, I mean, I've muted my sister before, like a couple years ago, when I was like, I'm so sick of you constantly posting, like stop. Like, I just mute her because I'm like, okay, well, whatever, I don't need to be comparing myself. But the other thing is also like taking into account that there's people that have been in business much longer, and if you're comparing yourself a lot to them in that regard, like you got to keep that in mind. You're like, okay, I'm just starting out, I've only been in business for like X amount of months, and they've been in business, like 10 years. And it's like,
and honestly, time doesn't even have much to do with it, because what also happen is you'll compare yourself to the people who started the same time as you and be like, well, why am I not where they are? Like, oh my God, we've both been doing the same amount of time and they're already booked out. First of all, you don't know what's actually going on behind the scenes. You don't know if they're booking out at cheap prices and working their butt off and like for 60 hours a week. You don't know how they were getting those clients. You don't know what connections they had. You don't know if it's actually even true.
I could just be posting it, just be like, oh, I have like 3 clients I'm doing this for right now, like just to like make it look like they're.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I've done this before. I did it before.
Yeah. Like, because the other thing is, it's also fulfilling their own imposter syndrome too, because they feel like they have to prove that they're like doing this good, and so
yeah. But also just beyond the fact that everyone goes at a different pace. Like again, some people have certain connections. Some people just already are super clear on what exactly they want and where they're going and how to do it. Some people got marketing degrees, so they're really good at marketing. Most of it, who here got a marketing degree? We actually have a few of them. Look at y'all. Y'all overachievers. I did not get a marketing degree. So here I am learning how to market. And that's fine, because again, some people, maybe they have that knowledge and you didn't have it, and that's okay. It's fine. Like just because we're going at a different pace doesn't mean we're doing worse than someone. Like, and I know it's so easy because there are so many, I know a lot of you are VAs, and there are so many VAs that started at the same time. And now we're getting to the point where everyone's starting to compare themselves to each other. So for all you VAs here who are seeing that happen and feeling like, wait, why am I not where they are? You guys are totally different people. You don't know where they actually started. You don't actually even know where they are. Like, don't worry about them. Don't worry about them. Awesome. Did anyone resonate?
Oh, could I add one more thing? I think another thing to keep in mind too, because that happened to me recently, and like another brand designer, like she locked somebody in for a high ticket price. We started at the same time, and then I had like a mini 5 to 10 minute crying session before I got back into like working. But I really thought about it. I'm just like, their clients are not your dream clients. You're, again, as you mentioned, they're both different people. And I keep that in mind as well. Like whoever might be a dream client for somebody else, they may not be a dream client for you. And it's just it's gonna come in time. So just wanted to add that in there. Yeah.
Some people choose markets that they know really, really well already, or some people just like happen to choose a market that just they needed their help right then. Like, you know, there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of factors going into it, and you don't know all of those factors. And honestly, it doesn't matter. You don't have to know all the factors.
Yeah,
Don't go there trying to
exactly.
figure it out.
And the more we focus on what other people are doing, and it's like, oh, she's doing that, the more we might be missing somebody's right in front of us, and they're like, I love your work. I want to work with you. You know?
Yeah. Oh, it's always been a great thing when I have my VA clients I work with, and this is always the funniest thing. If they're listening to this, they'll find this funny. But we've been on group calls before, and they've been like talking and chattering, and they work with, a lot of them work with coaches. And they were just like, oh, like I haven't gotten a client in a little while. And they're all just sitting there, talking about that. And we talk about it. And I'm sitting there like, you guys understand, not a single one of you has pitched yourself to me. I'm sitting right here listening to you, coaching you, being someone in your idea, or even just for market research, it's like, oh, no one will give me responses on my form. And I'm like, so who's your target market again? Mindset coaches. Like, I'm literally right here. But it's the missing. It's the like, for example, like feeling like if they hire a coach, now they can't work with that person. That's not true, by the way. But it's just, even if I didn't actually need to work with them, I'm not saying like definitely pitch to me. I'm just saying like you had an opportunity. We built a connection. Like, I think Crystal has also done this with me too. Like before when I was doing coaching stuff, she's like, what if I need your services? Why have you never pitched to me? She said that too. This was like months ago. And I was like, oh crap. Like you guys don't understand. They're right in front of you.
In our group program, Ariel and Tiana, we were like, well, we're your ideal clients, like pitch to us. And we're just like, people just trade with each other in the industry a lot. Like, I feel like there's no real power dynamic and stuff. Because I always think about like what everyone has that I don't, but then I also think about what I have that everyone else doesn't. And I try my best to like talk about that publicly all the time so that we just have a culture of just like, reminding each other what we have that we don't and stuff. And I've hired a lot of my like former clients. Like I literally hired Ariel. So like, yeah, it's totally like a trade.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that too. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's always a trade. Like just because and I know people are afraid, like once they make friends with someone, all of a sudden they're just like, wait, no, I can't pitch myself to them. That's honestly usually the best people you could possibly pitch to. Let's be honest. Let's be real. Cause you've heard that before, build connections in the DMs, right? You're trying to be people's friends in a way. So why would you pitch to your friends? Anyway, just kind of breaking past that little myth. Okay, so I know we're kind of running out of time, so I'm going to go through a few of these that I particularly like, and it unpresented itself apparently, so that's great and awesome. Don't you love tech? This is another activity that I like to do, and this often comes about because things get stuck in your head. So one of the big things, whenever you're doing any of this stuff, writing it down or saying it out loud puts it in the physical world so that it's not all in your head. And that's true for writing down goals. That's true for when you're journaling. That's true for a lot of things. Just know that it actually helps because it helps you see it a little bit more objectively rather than it's just all jumbled in your head. You think it's organized. It's not, I promise you. But yeah, this is another one that I actually do pretty often. And that's the fact, assumption, feeling. Basically, you would write down whatever thing that you're thinking about. You would write down the fact. So for example, I only got 5 views on my stories today. Like I have never received over 100 views yet. Those things are facts. Let's just say, for example, this is just an example. Under the assumption column, you would write down what you believe that is not proven. So usually what happens is you'll think that something is a fact and then you'll be like, wait a minute, but it's not proven yet. So Billy Bob, this is the person that you envy or admire, probably got 200 views on his stories. Like he must have, because he has this many followers, and always talks about how people are replying to his stories. Like, I'm upset that I haven't received that many yet. That's what goes under the feeling column. It kind of all ties together. But the idea, again, is to separate what's actually true from the assumptions you're making, often based on that truth. So you're sitting there being like 5 views. Maybe the assumption here is that 5 views is bad. Maybe that's another one of the assumptions, because you're sitting here obviously upset that you only got that. Why? Because you think 5 views is bad. Is it? I mean, bad's kind of a subjective thing anyway. So that's an assumption. Like, no one's saying 5 views is bad. So, I mean, one person might be saying it, but just because someone says it doesn't mean it's true. We know this. So this is one of my favorite exercises, and it helps kind of detach things from yourself. It kind of helps you calm down, at least for me. Has anyone done something like this before? Yes. I can't see everyone, so I don't know if anyone's nodding or anything. Awesome. I'm throwing this one in there, especially for those. I know this isn't my type of thing, but this is something that I think helps some people, especially you ENFJs out there. But sometimes, and this is kind of a weird one for some people, but it's actually okay to validate some of your imposter syndrome. Examples: you're acting like this because you care. You truly want to help someone to the best of your ability. That's why you believe this stuff, because you're really like, you want to help someone. That's why you're worried. It truly matters to you. It's really important to you. And by doing this, you're shifting the focus onto the things that are good about you, the things that, like, you feel good about. I wouldn't stick to just this as a method personally, but I think it's okay to not always completely invalidate the feelings that you're having, to not sit there and be like, oh, well, this always sucks. It's okay to sit there and be like, you know what? It's okay if I feel sad or angry or a little anxious. It's okay. Like, let's think about why it's okay. It's because I care. It's because this thing matters. It's because I admire these people and I actually look up to them and I want to be a better person. That's not a bad thing. None of those things are bad things. So I'm throwing this in there because for some people, I know sometimes the validation just helps put you in the right mindset to then move past it. So I don't know if that resonates with anyone, but if it does, feel free to put it in the chat. Oh, this is my other favorite. I love these. These are I always say these are all my favorites, apparently. What are the rules? This is another game. Imposter syndrome is usually happening because of these strict rules that you set for yourself. Expectations, it's kind of a similar thing, but basically you're putting these rules on yourself. Like, you have to do this, you must do that. So how this game works is you have to identify what those rules are that you're now setting, those expectations, so to speak. Identify what they are, and then you have to discredit them. And I love this because I like calling myself out, so I think it's a lot of fun. But basically, for example, this rule I've set for myself: if I'm going to give an answer, it always has to be correct. And that comes up for me because sometimes I won't share my opinion on something or my thoughts on something because I feel like I'm missing some pieces of the puzzle. I feel like, oh, I can't say that because, like, I don't know if it's 100% true yet. So I have to keep thinking about it. That's just how it shows up for me. And then I'll have to sit there and discredit it and be like, well, you know what? I think I'm allowed to give an answer that I actually believe in because, I think it's true. Let's just be real. I think it's true. Even if piece of me is like, maybe there's a little no, it doesn't. Not everything you say has to be 100% correct. Give yourself a chance, by the way, to fail. That's kind of a big thing here too. Give yourself a chance to fail and be incorrect, but also give yourself the opportunity to actually share the things that you value and believe, even if there's someone out there who might not agree with it and say you're incorrect. It's fine. Okay. It's okay. I promise. Or here's another one. I have to look a certain way on camera. And if I don't, then I can't go on camera. It's an unspoken rule some people have. I don't have that one, but there's a lot of people that do. Then you would have to discredit that and be like, well, why do I have to look a certain way on camera? I don't have to look a certain way on camera. Like, who created that rule? Who created that rule? Because I can technically, I could always go on camera no matter what I look like. Technically go on camera naked. Am I going to do it? No, but you could. So this rule is now invalid. Can is always an interesting one to work with. Whenever you see can, I can't do this, it's an easy way to be like, what do you mean you can't? You always can. Should you? That's a different story. Can you? So if you ever have those in your rules, that's an easy one to call out. But this is another fun little one. This is kind of similar. This is an affirmation one. So if you all use affirmations, if you use affirmations, by the way, put your favorite one in the chat. I would love to see that. I love affirmations. This is my version of affirmations because I'm a writer. So if you're also a writer, this might work for you. So when my imposter syndrome hits, usually what's happening is you're having a conversation in your head with it. So what you have to do is identify what is being said. So, you know, my imposter syndrome, for example, will be like, well, maybe you're better off sticking to a 9 to 5 because like it's more stable and you know you're good at, people always praise you when you're there. Like, you know, you're going to get a solid salary every month, all this other stuff. Like that's what's going on in my head. Then you would have to write a new script, and I put it somewhere where I can access it. I have a whole folder of imposter syndrome scripts that I repeat to myself. So basically when I'm hearing this going on, I'm like, okay, let me pull out my script affirmation and read it out loud. So basically I'll sit there and be like, you know what? I hate 9 to 5s. They fucking suck. I'm never going back to a 9 to 5. Screw that. And this is me. This is how I like to talk to myself. You can talk to yourself a lot nicer. This is how I like to do my scripts because it makes me feel good and powerful. So I do it in writing. You can do it out loud, you can do it whatever way you want. But the great thing is to have it somewhere where you can access it, whether it's recorded or in writing, so that you can look back on it and almost like you're reciting a script. That's what affirmations are, right? It's you basically reciting something to yourself. Gosh, people are putting things in chat. My favorite affirmation, my body is perfect just the way it is, and I thank it. I love the gratitude there. Who loves that? Oh my God, that's amazing. My body is perfect just the way it is, and I thank it. Oh, I'm going to use that one. I'm going to write that one down. Anyone have any thoughts on any of this so far? I know we have 2 minutes left. If you have to leave, you're totally fine. Someone else put something in the chat. Another favorite affirmation that Leah added, I am exactly where I need to be. That is, I love when you say that, Leah, because that always makes me feel so much better. I see you posting stuff like that. I love it. I am exactly where I need to be, no matter where that is. And I think that is a really powerful thing to recognize. I see everyone agrees with that. So there we go.
Excuse me, can I add a question or a comment? Actually, about the part that you mentioned about putting some hard rules for yourself. At some point, if you don't change those hard rules and then you cannot also make them happen, then I think you will get to some disappointing points, right? I want to ask you, what should you do when you get to that point? Do you have any suggestion?
You mean when you set those rules and then you feel disappointed in it?
Yeah, when you can't make them, you know. And
yeah. Well, okay. I mean, this comes to the unrealistic expectation piece of it, right? Like what you really, and this is for me, and people, I want you all to add in on your thought on this too, because we all handle this in different ways. But there will be times I will feel disappointed. So for example, when I set this rule that I have to get like this many clients in my program to feel like it was worth it. And then it doesn't happen, you feel disappointed. For me, it's kind of going back to being like, okay, what was the rule I set there that made me feel disappointed? Because sometimes you don't recognize it right away. And then I realized, okay, I was aiming for this. That's why I was disappointed, because I was aiming for that. And I felt like that would make me feel worthy. Therefore, if I didn't hit that, I wouldn't feel worthy. Awareness, that's step 1. Step 2 for me is, and this is again, just for me, but it's basically what Leah said. It's I am exactly where I need to be. Like there is always a way to go up. So even if I only got, say, 3 clients that time, or if I disappointed myself by not getting on camera or whatever that is, I'll be like, you know what? That's okay. I validate myself. That's kind of the big thing. I'll sit there and I'll be like, that is okay that I wasn't able to do that thing. It is always okay that you weren't able to do that thing or you failed at that thing. No matter what people say, it is okay. It's fine. And that's for me is the second step, because then I can sit there and remember like, okay, well, moving forward, what can I do to change that? What can I do to get more clients? What can I now do to actually show up on camera? If this method didn't work, what's something that will work? And that, again, now that you go through the feelings, you go through you validate yourself, you feel, you let that disappointment kind of go. I think what tends to happen is people cling so hard to the current feelings. People cling so hard to being like, I am disappointed in myself right now. I am mad at myself. I'm so upset. Rather than realizing like all that's going to pass at some point. At some point, all of that passes. It might come back. We're not going to delude ourselves in thinking it might not. But for me, it's like, if I can just accept that it's okay to feel upset and sad and disappointed, it's so much easier to then think forward, to then be like, well, what next? Rather than dwelling on what's going on right now and trying so hard to be like, well, I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to be sad. That's my view on that. Because again, I see it all the time. People dwell. And the easiest way not to dwell is to accept that it's okay. You're allowed to feel that way. You're allowed to be disappointed and upset. No matter what anyone else says, we're giving you strategies to not, but you're going to. And that's totally fine. All you have to do then is think, well, what can I do differently next time? Or maybe I need to keep doing the same thing and it's going to build on itself. It's fine. Yes, I do laugh in between everything. Thank you for pointing that out. Oh, Crystal left without me noticing. Anyway, does anyone want to add like your way of getting past that disappointment? Like when you when you have a rule you maybe set for yourself and then you disappoint yourself, a rule or a goal, whatever that might be. Does anyone else have anything they like to do? Sure, lead us.
I always tell clients, like when it comes to being upset that things aren't happening fast enough. I think that's one of the biggest things is like, we want it right now. We want the 10K months. We want everyone signing up and it's not happening fast enough. And we're going through kind of like the obstacles, the ups and downs. It's like, but what if you decide you want to write a book in 5 years? Wouldn't it be more interesting if you had some like overcoming things, like your story is you overcoming things, and no, like you don't ever watch a movie where the person, everything's just magical and everything was perfect. So that's one. And I think also like it's Valentine's Day, so this is kind of like a couples thing, related thing, but a lot of people are often upset that they're single, right? Especially like women when they're reached like 30 or so, they're like, but I'm not married and I don't have kids, but how do you know the married people with kids are happy? Like, do you want to just be married just to be married, or do you want to be happily married? Like there's a difference. Like all the people you know who are married aren't just happy. Like
it's that same thing where people think that once they get married they'll be happy rather than aiming for the happiness first.
Exactly. And do you think everyone who has 20,000 followers or who makes $50,000 a month is happy? Like, who knows? Some of them, hopefully they are, but those things aren't related. Like happiness doesn't come from having the perfect timeline of your life and everything worked out instantly. It doesn't come from that. So remembering that and like detaching from those outcomes, I think is huge.
Yeah, I think we always look at someone's story. Oh, it's echoing somewhere. I don't know who. But we always look at someone's story and we look at the result, or like even when we're watching Disney movies, for example, like you look at the ending and we're like, I want that. I want the fairy tale wedding. I want to be Ariel with her prince after she defeated the, monster. I want to be freaking Elsa and Anna, best siblings ever, right? Except then we forget that to get there in all those movies, there's a reason. It was horrible. They had a horrible freaking time. And if we were put in those situations, it probably would feel that way too. And this is true for pretty much any movie you'll watch. But again, we always sit there and be like, I want to be this person. I want to have that. I want to have that. But when you think about it, you're like, all of those people that had those things that we're now aiming after, they went through some shit to get there. So the stuff that we're going through now and the struggles we have, the failures, all of that stuff is absolutely going to be part of your story going forward. It's something that when you actually, reach the end result, which probably, we're always on a journey. So you're going to be most excited. And I always like to say it this way, but you're going to be most excited to tell people about the struggles you went through. We don't sit there, most of the time you're not sitting there and being like, oh, I remember that time I hit 5K in my first month. Wow. So great. I was amazing. Half the time you're sitting there and be like, God, like, I remember 2 years ago when I would never get on camera and everyone was saying mean things to me, but then I did, that's the story. Like, you don't sit there, like, no one wants to hear a story about someone who just succeeded. People want to hear the story about how they struggled and then what they did to overcome that struggle. So storytelling is definitely one of my best values. So I relish in the failure. It might suck sometimes, but then I think, haha, I cannot wait to turn this into a book. Yeah, I know we've kind of run over the time here. I wanted to share one last thing because, what's a workshop without a little bit of sales, guys? Share one last thing. I have a lot of different strategies. I'll share this with you guys, the whole slides with you guys afterwards so that you have them all. But I just wanted to let everyone know that I am relaunching my mastermind. I'm calling it the Baller Mastermind. I am very proud of that name. I like to point that out. That's why it's in big letters right now. Also, it is not 12 weeks. It is actually 4 months now. I changed that and apparently forgot to change it. Look, I made a mistake. It's fine. But basically I've been doing this with my current ladies. We do visioning together. We work on goal setting. We brainstorm content ideas. And basically what we're helping you do in this program is getting you to act more like a boss, treat yourself like a boss, feel like a boss, and just generally feel happier. And I think it's getting cut off at the bottom because I don't know what I'm doing here. But whatever, I'm just going to stop sharing now. I'm screwing everything up on tech today. But if you are interested in joining that program, we have a ton of fun in it. And we're actually doing a graduation that the new program the new signups are going to be able to join in on. So if you're interested in that, feel free to DM me afterwards. I'll be sending an email afterwards, or you can put in the chat and I'll reach out to you. Totally up to you. But I am here to talk about it. In any case, does anyone have any final thoughts?
I'm gonna add one quick one here because I was really resonating with Ariel's affirmation.
Yeah.
And she was just talking about I forgot what her affirmation was. I definitely wrote it down. If not, I'm gonna write it down. So
I am the higher self of a former version of me. I've come so far. I missed that one. Thank you, Ariel.
And I feel like that's so important to remember, especially I feel like last year, I feel like we all had our own set of struggles with 2020, but it's like we need to remind ourselves, I think it goes back to appreciating those small things. And I think, Dami, I talked to you about this when I read over my journal last year and when I was let go from my job and I was like, it's the end of the world. And it really wasn't. The things that really brought me back into focus are those small things. And it's just like appreciating. It's like we have our health. There's so many things we can appreciate. And it has helped us make us stronger. And we have come through, I feel like, and we're going to get through this too. So I feel like just having that reminder to appreciating, again, the journey that you're on now. And so I just wanted to
I love that
because I love that affirmation.
Oh, yeah, I think these are all great affirmations. Thank you guys for sharing these. Also, I'm saving the chat so I can save all of these. You guys are also welcome to save the chat, I think. I think there's a way if you go into the chat, the 3 little dots, I'm pretty sure you can also save the chat. So if you were interested and wanted to save that stuff, feel free to do that and also connect with people. I would love to hear, and you can do this in the chat, you can do this in just speaking, whatever you want. But I would love to hear you guys' biggest takeaways from today. What are you taking away? Who wants to share? I'm just gonna sit
I'll share.
All right.
I think the not necessarily most important, but I guess the most influential to me was that, you're really not alone in what you're feeling. And everybody just nodded their heads when I said that. So I think that I sometimes have this assumption that we've been talking about that I'm the only one that feels this way, or I'm the only one having these problems, when in actuality, like obviously you're literally a coach for this type of thing. So in actuality, if there wasn't a demand for it, then you wouldn't be in business. So I think that it's nice to know that a lot of people can come on here and really get great advice from you and great strategies, and that I'm not alone in how I'm feeling with my imposter syndrome and where I am with my business and all of that. So
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else have a big takeaway? Does anyone resonate with what you said? I see the nodding. Yep. Nicola?
Great.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted you second time. Please go ahead.
Oh my God. Okay. I was just saying, I feel like this happened a few times.
All the time.
I just want to say yes, of course. Yeah, like I absolutely resonated with what she said. I think having this platform where we can all like talk about it and share with each other is so important. Because then we can also like come out of this and oh my God, it's like pouring rain outside. Sorry, it just like startled me. We can like take away from this and like go back into our business and be like, okay, look at all these things that we are doing, and we don't have to feel like inferior to other people, because it's just like it doesn't get you anywhere if you're just gonna sit there and think, oh, but they're doing this better and they're just like doing this and that. It's like, okay, but what are you doing? Like, what are you going to do to like keep going and keep doing the things that you want to achieve? But the other big takeaway I wanted to mention was the like giving your negative thoughts and like your imposter syndrome a name. Like I wouldn't have never like thought of doing that. I think that's so cool and like a funny spin on it too, because then you can just be like yeah, like someone said Karen, like damn it Karen, like shut up.
We're getting weird here, but I had one of my clients named her imposter syndrome Isis. So I know that it's one of those things. It's just one of those things where you can name it whatever you want because no one else has to hear it. But it definitely gives it kind of a funnier spin because then you can really start yelling at it. If you've ever seen any of my comics, that's basically me in my brain yelling at my imposters. Thank you for nodding. I see people are actually paying attention. Like I'll just tell freaking, he'll go into the corner, just go in there, hide. Like I'll literally be talking. Usually he's over here on the side, and I'll literally have to look over here, like he's as if he's standing there. And yes, I made him a guy. My imposter syndrome is a guy. Go over there. Men are evil.
It reminds me of people that like have like a drunk persona too, where it's like they blame their drunk actions on like their persona. Like people will like name it their name backwards or something like that. Like I remember because my name's Anna Leah, so I would always be like I would just find it funny because I'm like, damn it, Anna, like you don't need to be doing this. Like getting me in trouble, really.
I love the naming one. It is definitely by far one of my favorite things to do. I mean, you don't want to detach everything from yourself because obviously it's still you, but it's still just a fun way to kind of like to remember that like those don't have to be your feelings and thoughts. They really don't. And a lot of times they're untrue, which is it's easier to say something's untrue when it's detached from you sometimes. Yeah, anyone else have a big takeaway? Again, feel free to put in the chat if you don't feel like talking about it. Because I like to share these in my post-event posts. So yeah, anyone else have a big takeaway?
I think another good reminder for myself, and I think this goes hand in hand with the perfectionist and the expert and trying to control everything because you don't want to fail. But what you were mentioning before, you can always give someone the tools to like help themselves, but like don't overwork yourself to the point like at the end of the day they have that option to place those actions into effect. All you have to worry about is yourself and what you're going to do. So I think that was a good reminder because sometimes that just I'm saying it now, but I need to like slap it on the wall so I can
it's tough as coaches and VAs because as a coach, for example, you want to be able to help someone but you can't control what they actually do. And I think, again, and I'm only speaking from a coach perspective here. I was a VA though. I'll get to that one. But like sometimes, you know, you have people coming to you who just, they expect you to change them somehow. Versus, and then there's also the VA side of things where you give people like a beautiful website, like these wonderfully branded templates, an organized inbox, whatever it might, or, you know, Ariel is a style coach. Like you give them all the, you feel like you give them all the tools for them to do it themselves. But sometimes they don't do it. Like I've seen people, like I've seen VAs be like, I gave them like this great website and they changed everything. Or they like just stopped using it. Or it feels like, you know, why did I put in all this work? And that's easy to do. But again, you can't, like you said, we can only really give them the tools to do something. And that's your job. You're giving them tools. You're not doing things. I know we call it like service providers are done for you. It's not really. Like, again, you're still only giving them tools. They're still the one putting it into place, putting it into practice usually.
I think that reminds me a lot. Sometimes I'll have a friend and they'll constantly ask me for advice, and then I'm constantly giving them advice. And then there's an excuse why they can't do it. And then I'm exhausted. And again, at the end of the day, it comes to them implementing them. Like, so.
Yeah. And it's not your fault if they don't. This comes down to also choosing your, you know, your dream clients and all that stuff, because when you choose your dream client properly, they're the people who are actually going to implement that usually. They're the people that you're like, they're motivated, they're driven, they're ready, they aren't going to control you. They're going to, you know, usually give you this. Everyone has their own ideal client, but that's kind of one of those things. Analia said, I had a discovery call with the girl that was so excited on the call. I gave her all the tools that we needed to get started and to do the things she expressed. Then she turned around and was like, oh, I didn't realize it was so much work. I don't want to do that.
No, I was like,
laugh. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I got on the call with her and I was like, yeah, so, and she was like agreeing with everything. She's like, this sounds amazing. I'm like, okay, cool. Then I'm like, I sent her a follow-up email and like a little pamphlet. I'm like, I need your logins, need this and that. And here's like a little brand questionnaire so I can like get started with you. And she's like, wow, I didn't realize it was gonna be so detailed. I don't really think I'm ready for that. I was like then why are you hiring a VA?
Yep. Yep. Oh my goodness. Oh, that makes me laugh so much sometimes. I had my one of my clients too. She came and asked us a question because she was like, I did this brand work for someone, and like she like created these story templates and like all this stuff to make it look pretty. And basically she spent like hours and hours on it, way more than she probably should have given what she was being paid. We talked about that. But then she came back around and the person just changed everything. And for her, the idea was portfolio. She was sitting there being like, well, if they change everything and people know I worked with her, because I was like calling her out as being like my client, then isn't that going to reflect poorly on me? First of all, if that ever happens, by the way, for all of you guys, like save the work that you send to people, take screenshots of it so that if they do, this is a totally unrelated thing. If they do change everything, you have the work you did. Just something to put out there. That's true for anyone with portfolio work. I'm just saying. But yeah, you're always going to have the people that like skew what you say, skew what you've told them to do, decide that they want to do something completely different. And again, can't control that. Can't really do anything about that. All you can do is do what you want to do and realize the kind of people you want to work with, which is also important. So, and it just kind of sucks sometimes to have to turn people away. Like sometimes feels bad to have to turn people away because they're not your dream client and you're like, and you know it. But trust me when I say that it is good for you down the line. I'm telling you right now. It feels weird in the moment, especially when you're like, but I need the money. It's just like that.
I had to do that yesterday though, actually. And it was funny because I was talking to Sam about it and I'm just like, I know I need a client, but like, it's not, again, it was geared towards engagement. I'm like, this isn't what I want to do. And then I'm just going back, stuck to the same 9 to 5 that I didn't want to do. So why
exactly
do that?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, do you really want this job to turn into another 9 to 5, except you're probably working more hours and also you don't get benefits? Like, is that what we want here? No, it's not why we're here. I hope anyway. I mean, if that's your thing, that's your thing. Anyone else have any big takeaways? I know we've really run over. If you need to pop off, don't worry. But I'll stick around for another 10 minutes if anyone needs to talk about anything. But does anyone else want to share a takeaway? Ariel.
Sure. I really loved, and I mean, you knew is like as soon as you switched the slide, you were like, ENFJs will like this. The validation one, where like sometimes validating your imposter syndrome is like really powerful because I think, I mean, I love affirmations, like I really do. But I think at first when I began, it was hard for me to just like switch my head from like a negative thought to a completely positive thought. And there needed to be like something bridging the gap in between. So I feel like that validating the imposter syndrome and more like having that become a reframe and then pivoting that into a positive thought was really what started like me being able to do affirmations more regularly. So like instead of like, oh my gosh, like she's so much better than me, to like, oh my gosh, I'm awesome. Like just being like, you know, she's way further along on her journey than I am. I'm doing great where I'm at. Like having a middle ground there really helped. And so I also thought about how like what Nikki said earlier about like showing up to serve. I feel like that was a super validating thing for me too, because it was at first very hard to show up for myself, which now I'm like a lot better at. But at the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, showing up for me, keeping promises to me. And then it was almost like using the weakness as a strength until I was strong enough to let it go.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I mean, I love using weakness as a strength thing, because sometimes, and that's kind of the idea of cheating, like the whole like cheating thing we were saying, like sometimes you have to cheat the system. Like sometimes you have to call yourself the things you're insecure about out yourself, for example, even though you are actually, basically you're using your insecurity as your weapon. But sometimes that it helps you kind of come back around to then being in a more positive mindset, as long as it's getting you to do something about it. Again, messy action, better than doing nothing.
Definitely. And same with small promises. I feel like a lot of confidence that I've built actually has come from self-trust first. Because I feel like that's where, for me, where it stems from is like, okay, I don't know if I trust myself to be okay, like if this fails, if this doesn't work out. And it's like, why don't I trust myself? And then just like being able to keep promises to myself every day until they're like bigger and bigger and bigger, it was like almost like really developing like a relationship and a friendship with me. And like, oh, like I trust her, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror, I trust her, like she's got my back, doesn't matter what's going to happen because she's got me. And like that's what I think really helped in building my confidence.
And someone always has your back, and that's you. Like, again, you can't control what anyone else does. You can't control if they're going to have your back, but you can control that you do.
Right. I love that bad bitch in the air. You got me.
Oh my God. And you're doing amazing too, Ariel. You really are. So
thank you. Thank you. I mean, I learned so much about myself through plugging Dami and Crystal's program. Really good. Amazing.
Yeah, it's all about Myers-Briggs.
I already miss it, honestly. That's why I'm here.
Don't make me cry already. I was already crying last week. All right. It does get really sad, by the way. It's my first time ending a program, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm sad. I'm really sad.
No, you tagged me in your stories about made me cry. God.
Yeah, just it happens. It's fine. It's fine. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing and connecting. It's been awesome to have you guys here. This is honestly, I'm gonna be completely like, blunt and straightforward, that like this is probably one of the best my events have ever gone. I'm feeling great. Feeling really great. But yeah, just so you guys know, again, I'll be sending an email with the replay if you want to see that. And I will also be attaching the slides just because it has other strategies in there I didn't get to go over. And sometimes it's easier just to see it in writing anyway. And that way you guys can kind of refer back to that information as well. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of your takeaways. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and opening up to me. And I want to say thank you for giving us. Yes, well, of course, I'm always here. I do these events every month. Next month, we're doing one all about Myers-Briggs. So if you're into personality typing at all and want to know more about it, because we got some hot tea to spill, come and join us. Ariel, I better see you there so you can give some insight now that you know. Thank you so much, everyone. And I saw Ariel said OMJ there. Good. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. It was so exciting. If you do want to join that Myers-Briggs, put in the chat like me or something like that. And I will add you to the invite list. I see Samantha said, yeah, awesome, perfect. But otherwise, like, we're good here. I'm gonna hang around and for another 5 minutes if anyone wants to hang around and just talk. But otherwise, feel free to go. And thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Happy Valentine's Day.
Bye. Thanks, Tommy.
This is me leaving you with the heart. And thank you, Leah, for joining too and offering your input.
Thanks for all the energies.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us and interacting.
My pleasure.
Again, I love seeing you all in the chat. I'm gonna save that before I forget. There we go. Hidami. Oh, thank you so much, Cleona. I'll write things down. You guys are very sweet. That was amazing. You guys are awesome. Thanks. And Nicola, you always stick around. I know you do.
I love to talk. I love to connect with people.
I know.
I like to hear more what people have to say. Why not stick around?
I'm gonna stop.
What's your